under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated.
Before we proceed to communications, we need a motion to suspend the rules and allow Councilmember Nichols to participate in the meeting online.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember McConaughey, a second by Councilmember Jacob. Discussion to the motion. Seeing none, let's vote.
Councilmember Burton?
No.
Mayor Rolfe?
No.
Councilmember Jacob?
Yes.
Councilmember McConaughey?
Aye.
Councilmember Newton?
Aye.
Councilmember Anderson?
Yes.
Vote passes 4-2 in favor.
We move now to communications. City Manager?
Thank you, Mayor. You notice the landscaping going on around City Hall. That'll be done tomorrow, so everything will be cleaned up and ready for the 4th of July. And we assume that all that is going to be happening as we've noted in the past. So, thank you.
City Attorney?
Thank you, Mayor, Council. If I may introduce two new members of the City Attorney's staff. They are seated out here in the audience, but if they could stand with me at the podium, I'll introduce them now. This is Janet Miller. Janet's joining the prosecution team. She's been practicing law as long as I have. We took the bar exam at the same time. She started out on the legal defender side, though, not the prosecution side, where for the last 10 years, though, she's been out in private practice, both doing criminal defense as well as civil matters, most recently handling a automobile homicide case in Utah County that lasted almost a year. So at this point, we're really fortunate to have a prosecutor of her experience joining the team, and will be actually starting and appearing in front of Judge Coons just this past Monday. Also next to Janet is Rachel Otto. Rachel is fortunately coming from South Jordan, where we concluded a lawsuit, so we're glad to be able to talk to her about this stuff. For the last 4 years, she's been working in South Jordan, handling HR issues, employment issues, also in private practice. Before that, for almost 7 years. So we're very fortunate to have Rachel here. You're going to hear a lot about ways to make this city greener, save on energy, and turn off lights when you're not in the room using it. And we're also fortunate to have Rachel there. So I thought you would be a wonderful opportunity to introduce them to both you and the community. Thank you.
Welcome on board. You know, you've got a slave driver for a boss, so he puts you to work before you even got through the whole...
You got to start in West Jordan sometime fast. You hit the ground running.
Welcome on board.
And if it's all right with you, I've also told them they could leave at this point. They don't have to stay for this part.
It's going to be a long night, so they just will.
Thank you. I don't think we got the mayor said you're...
Scott Langford.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I just want to bring to your attention that Nanette Larson will be leaving the city. She's going back to school to get her master's degree at the University of Utah. And so next week will be her final week here. She's been here for over or nearly 4 years. So she will be, if she's not here, she's got an item on the agenda tonight. So I just wanted to make you aware that she's leaving.
Brian Clegg.
Just one item, as you all know, we're getting ready for the Western Stampede and the celebration in the park. We invite everyone out. We'll be ready. Thank you.
Bill Piper.
Nothing tonight, Mayor.
Wendell Wigby.
Yes, I just wanted to give an update on the speed tables that the council was concerned about. There were actually 22 of them that had been identified. We've completed 13 of them to date. Well, as of a couple days ago, actually. And we're finishing about 3 to 4 of them a day, so we should be done in the next week and a half or so.
Chief McElreath.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Just one item. Fireworks season getting ready to start. As a reminder, 3 days before the 4th of July and 3 days after are the legal dates to discharge fireworks. I would also remind our community that they can go to our website to see the restrictions that we have in place. And we've also got 22 fireworks stands in the city that we're working on inspecting to get open for the season. That doesn't count what's in the stores as well. So it's going to be a busy time of year, and we would ask for everybody's common sense as they use their fireworks this holiday season. Thank you.
Deputy Chief Davis.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Just a date for you guys, August 1st, we're going to have our National Night Out Against Crime, and we'd like to invite you mayors, along with the council, to come out with us that night to visit the community. It starts at 6 o'clock and should probably end around 9 o'clock, so August 1st. Thank you.
Thank you. Council comments. Councilmember Anderson.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't really have anything other than welcome the scouts that are here tonight and remind everybody of the 4th of July breakfast over at Veterans Park. And also just want to put a plug in for the candidates that are here and thank them for being here, as well as the citizens that are here. That's all I have. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Jacob.
Thank you, Mayor. You know, I was only going to have one thing, but now there's lots of things to talk about. I'd like to echo what Brian Clegg said about the 4th of July celebration. Last year was wonderful. This year will be even better. So please come and enjoy that. I'd like to echo what the Chief McElry said about fireworks. Please be smart. Keep an eye on your kids. There was a situation in my neighborhood last night. Some kids behind houses out in a field lighting things on fire. Not last night, last week. And just keep an eye on your kids, keep an eye on your neighborhood, and just make sure everybody's safe. The other thing was we just passed the budget last week, and the budget process, as we know, was quick, kind of feels rushed sometimes. I want to look at an overhaul of that process, starting sooner than later, and look at next year's budget sooner, so we have more time for more people to get more eyes on it, more reviews, so we're not cramming at the last minute and getting too late on a night where we're reviewing the budget and we get to a certain point in the evening where it's just, okay, it's too late to do anything more because we're all tired and want to go home, so let's just balance the rest out of rainy day funds. I don't like that process. I think we could do better. I think if we get started earlier and get a better look at it, and I'll come up with some specifics as far as timetables go over the next few weeks. But I just wanted to put that out there as a heads up. Thanks.
Councilmember Nichols, did you have a comment?
Nothing tonight. Thank you.
Councilmember Newton.
Thank you. I had the pleasure last week of attending the opening of the Sugar Factory Theater production of Curtains. It was a delightful production. I'm amazed at the talent that we have in the city. So any of you who would like to still see that, it is on each night until Saturday at 7:30 p.m. up in Midvale, Midvale's old theater. And if you get tired here tonight, you can still meet that show tonight. So thank you.
Councilmember Burton.
Thank you, Mayor. And go along with what Dave Newton was saying, I heard some good reviews about that, so I went to go see that Monday night, and it was sold out. So while I was there Monday, I got my tickets for Thursday, so I'll get to go see that Thursday. And then I also want to welcome the Boy Scouts that are here with us. Thank you for joining us. And I want to carry on a little bit more about the carnival and our Western Stampede that's coming up this weekend, our Independence Day weekend. It's going to be fantastic. So Friday is a family fun night, and then Saturday we've got the carnival and the Stampede, and then Monday we've got the carnival and Stampede, and then somewhere in there we've got a pie eating contest. And then on Tuesday we have a free breakfast for everybody to come. The council's going to be cooking your breakfast. We have the parade. Again, we'll have the carnival, we'll have the Stampede, and we'll have a movie in the park, and we'll have fireworks. So if you need something to do, we've got it for you. If you don't need something to do, we've got it for you. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember McConaughey.
Nothing tonight. Thank you, Mayor.
I have two items tonight. The selection committee for the arts facility, the architectural firm has met and reviewed all the applications. They've made a selection, and in the interest of time, if there's no one opposed, I would like to allow our staff to contact the successful applicant, and so they can move towards, we will ratify that selection on the 12th of July, but in an effort to move forward, is there anyone opposed to allowing staff to notify the selected firm? If there's no one, we will have staff do that tomorrow. And then I was contacted by Sky Willard asking if the City of West Jordan would be opposed to establishing and declaring July 1st through the 7th Independence Week, support of independent businesses in our community. Anyone opposed to allowing that? Okay, we will do that as well. We'll move now to citizens' comments. I have several signed up to speak this evening. We will start with them. As a reminder, you're allowed 3 minutes to speak on the topic of your choice. The first one, Keith Mead.
I wanted to speak to one of the consent items. I don't know if this is the appropriate time or if it would make is okay. This has to do with the refund of some of the impact fees that we paid. The staff recommended a refund, I think, of about $74,000. That's not what we asked for on the roads, but we'll accept that. The thing I wanted to discuss with you briefly had to do with the fire impact fees that we paid. We are a self-storage facility. We paid $13,800 in fees. Under the current schedule, we would have paid $5,600 in fire impact fees, so there's an $8,000 difference. You have authority to adjust the fee. We applied for permits in January, didn't get them until May. We still don't have permission to make cuts through the street, so there's been no connections made of any type. That's just, it's bare ground out there with dirt pushed around. You had a impact fee study done in 2016. You revised the fee schedule and included for the first time impact fees relative to storage units. And what we're asking is that we be viewed as having, we're willing to pay the fees that are in the current schedule. And we think that the city would be hard-pressed to argue that your fire impact fees fell by 70% on May 27th, that really your fire impact fees were established with the study and with your approval of the fee schedule last November. And the city has an obligation to, in effect, certify that the fees that we're paying are your actual impact fees in connection with the expenses the city would incur in providing fire service. So our only impact from that project is going forward. There were no impact fees prior to even today while I'm standing here. And so our request would be that in addition to the recommended reduction in the road impact fees, that you approve some additional amount as a refund of fire impact fees, again keeping in mind that we paid about $8,200 more than we would have been required to today. And hopefully the council would see fit to give us all or substantially all of that difference in addition to the road impact fees. Thank you.
Thank you. Alexandra Ephraimov.
I'm not giving my little speech that I normally give. I am very, very, very upset. I went last Wednesday to the budget meeting, and I was appalled, 6 to 9 o'clock. I have to commend Mayor Rolfe. He was the one that during some of the entitlements about buying a snow plow for $250,000. And our manager said, let's go ahead and buy it. And our mayor said, wait a minute, we have money in the state, $5 million. Let's take the $250,000 out of that budget. But no, our manager wants to spend money. Every single entitlement Wednesday night that the council had money for, the manager was higher. He should resign, or I'm asking for his resignation. The other thing is, I am going to say I was appalled. You know, whether you're running for mayor or councilman, let me tell you something. We are all responsible for bringing businesses into this city. I want to know how many of you that are candidates actually, what did you do about keeping Facebook here? I never saw one person at Salt Lake County board meeting to say, let's have Facebook. I didn't see any of you at the State Board of Education saying, let's keep Facebook here. The thing I was upset about is Councilman Burton. I sat there, and for 3 hours, he's sitting there, the jokes were going back and forth, with Jacobs was sitting to his right. Do you know, Councilman Burton, if you want to joke like that, you know, here we are, budget, trying to cut $1.6 million.
Point of order, Mayor. This seems to be becoming a personal attack, which is not allowed under our rules.
I'm sorry, I checked with the attorney. He said I was allowed to state who I was talking about.
I did clarify that if it's a First Amendment right, she can exercise it. I think it's easier to allow her to talk for 3 minutes than pay her any amount of money, no matter how little it might be, to try to stop her from talking.
All right, continuing on Burton. I asked him why he was going to run for mayor. He said, well, because I can bring property into the city. Hello, how many of you candidates brought any amount of money? How many of you even tried to keep Facebook here? And by the way, you know, trying to budget, and you all didn't pass it before we left. You must have passed the budget later. But the point is that if you want to tell jokes, I suggest, Mr. Burton, you join the comedy club. This is not a comedy. This is a business, and it's serious. Thank you.
Wendy Maples.
Good evening, Mayor Rolfe and City Council. My name is Wendy Maples. I live at 2638 West, 7130 South here in West Jordan. I'm here tonight to speak on consent item number 5B for Joyful Welcome. Joyful Welcome is a nonprofit charity located right here in West Jordan. We help babies born at our local hospitals who might need a helpful start. And how do we help them? We provide them with a layette that consists of needed baby items such as blankets, diapers, wipes, an outfit, a blanket, a hat, socks, things that they can be bundled up in and brought home in. We are completely a volunteer board. We have about 15 members. We average from about 20 to 40 hours of service per week. It is a community effort. We've got many community volunteers that help us by donating items. It has turned into statewide spread as word has got out about us, and even in other states are they hearing about us and making donations. All of our donations are 100%. All the donations, 100% of it goes back into Joyful Welcome. And what we are asking tonight is we have one fundraiser a year. It is our 5K and stroller roll. It's held October 14th in Jordan Landing. And we are asking again that West Jordan City help us this year by sponsoring that race so we can continue to give babies a helpful start. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak during citizens' comments this evening? Please come forward. You know the drill. State your name and address, please.
My name is Rob Bennett. I live at 2182 West Parr Circle. I have been a resident of West Jordan City for over 20 years now, and I have to say that of all the communities that I've ever lived in Utah, I am most grateful to be able to live in West Jordan, Utah. It is one of the best run and one of the best taken care of cities of any city that I'm aware of. I know that I may have people who disagree with that, but that is honestly how I feel. I'm familiar with many of the staff and many of the council members who are doing so many things for the community. You sacrifice so much of your time and effort and abilities to be able to make it a wonderful place for us as citizens to live, and I wanted to thank you on behalf of the community for the service that you put in. The item I would like to address tonight is item 7G on the agenda, which is the salary for council members that has been brought up by Councilman Newton. He has made a suggestion that the amount dedicated for service that the council members put in be reduced from the amounts that it is currently at, to be a little bit more judicious in the amount of money that is being put out for people who are serving the community. As I was on the city council myself, I learned a principle that service to the community is its own reward. And having a significant amount of money is not something that's necessarily going to bring the best people to the city council to be able to work on behalf of the citizens. I would encourage the city council tonight to discuss this item together and come up to a resolution that could be approved that would allow for the council members starting in their next phase from the election that will take place after this, to be able to have a common amount of money that will be given to them on behalf of recovering for their service. I'm very grateful for all of you who are here tonight and for the community that is here too, and I hope that we can continue to come together and learn to be actively supporting the members of our community and be agreeable without being disagreeable. Thank you.
Thank you. Please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and City Council and employees of the city. I was unfortunate enough to have witnessed a very tragic incident that happened.
Sorry, Russ, you'll have to state your name and address.
Oh, I'm sorry. Russ Wall. I live at 6437 South Tamara Drive. I live in Taylorsville, but I'm right on the border. I could probably throw a rock and hit Dave's house. But as I was driving down the road today, I witnessed a tragic incident that happened in your city, and it was something that I would hope to have never have witnessed in my life. But unfortunately, I was there. Fortunately, I did have a dash cam in my vehicle, so I would hope that's helpful to the police. But I wanted to commend the police department. The chief's not here, but I hope you pass this on, for the professional way they treated myself and other witnesses. There were several witnesses to what happened, and in my case, they were very understanding as to why I was confused about what I may have seen and what I may not have seen. Your mind kind of goes blank when you see something like that, but they were very professional, and they made me feel more comfortable as I tried to help them, particularly Detective Saunders and Detective Christensen, and there's a sergeant. I apologize, I can't remember his name, but he was very kind, and they were also very considerate of our time, and wanted to get our statements and get us interviewed and get us back along in our day. So thank you. It's always been a pleasure being a neighbor to West Jordan. Thanks.
Thank you. Yes, please.
Oops. Sorry, my name's Max Johnson, 3454 West, 7580 South. And I just want to introduce myself as a candidate for one of the at-large council seats. I'm just, overall of your agenda, I'm just excited by both the volume and the diversity of the projects, and look forward to learning more about them as the summer goes along. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak during citizen comments? Seeing no one, I will close citizens' comments and turn to the consent calendar. Councilmember O'Connor.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to pull item J.
Item K? J. Okay. Councilmember Anderson.
I would like to pull item I.
Okay, item I and K are pulled. Excuse me, I keep saying that. Apologize. For the record, J. Councilmember McConaughey.
If there are no other items, I would move to approve all consent items with the exception of items I and J.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember McConaughey, a second by Councilmember Jacob. Discussion to the motion. Seeing none, let's vote.
Councilmember Anderson,
Yes.
Councilmember Jacob,
Yes.
Mayor Rolfe,
Yes.
Councilmember Nichols,
Yes.
Councilmember Burton,
Yes.
Councilmember Newton,
Yes.
Councilmember McConaughey.
Aye.
The vote passes 7 in favor.
In the interest of time, we will take these two items in their order. So, consent item I, approve a request by Keepsake Storage regarding a reduction to the transportation impact fee by $74,262.99 based upon the traffic study provided by the BYU chapter of the Institute of Traffic Engineers. Councilmember Anderson, you have this poll.
Yeah, and I'm not necessarily opposed to the impact fees. However, I would like to find out from staff if these impact fees are studies that we do, that we, for lack of a better word, cover our costs of providing it. This seems like a big, wide variation. So, I mean, are we just guessing, or are we have educated studies that dictate what these numbers are to be?
Certainly. When the applicant came in and submitted his application, he was under the former structure of the impact fees, and that was what he was charged, and he paid that. As our city policy dictates, they have the right to appeal that by supplying information supporting their position. The applicant has done that. They brought in a study of a storage unit that was constructed in Provo that is really analogous to his project here, and hence the reduction of the fee by $74,000. Since that time, we have revised our fee schedule, which has brought that kind of close to what they're requesting. Mr. Mead had addressed the fire impact fee, but we saw that at the time he submitted his application, he was vested at that time in that for both the fire and for the traffic. We didn't find any supporting documentation to reduce the fire impact fee, and that's why that was not included in the recommendation. Mr. Mead has said that his argument is that since that time, both the traffic impact fee and the fire impact fee have both come down, and that's why he would like consideration for that fire impact fee. But it's done by a demonstration supported by the applicant for those fees.
So David, how do we calculate what those fees are? How does the city come up with what those impact fees are?
Our consultant, Tischler Bice, has done the study for us and come up with those fees, the revised schedule. As you recall, this was done some time ago, and it was kind of delayed, and we eventually did pass the new fee schedule. And that's what Mr. Mead has referenced in his comments earlier today.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have, Mayor.
Councilmember Jacob.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a couple of questions on this one as well. So the reduction requested, or the amount requested, or on the agenda anyway, of $74,262.99, is that amount based on specifically the applicant's study?
Yes, sir.
Not the new fee schedule?
That is correct. The new fee schedule would dictate that it would be reduced by $73,275.14, a difference of about $1,000.
So they are in the ballpark from each other?
Yes, sir.
Okay. My comment on that is just that prices change all the time, and fees change and things change. When I go to the store and buy a gallon of milk and the next day it goes on sale, I don't normally get to go back and get my 75 cents back. That said, however, I also don't normally have a study that says, well, the cow only put in this much effort, so my gallon of milk should have only cost that much. Maybe I should try that. So I appreciate the clarification on that. Thank you.
Councilmember Newton.
Oops, I'm there. It seems to me that if we did a fee study, then the applicant shouldn't have to do one himself. That fee study should indicate exactly what we should be charging, and therefore I think that we ought to charge him what the fee schedule is right now.
Right.
Especially since he hasn't started construction or building, hasn't had any impact. So that
Certainly.
would be my suggestion.
Our fee schedule was actually ratified after he had submitted his
I understand that.
application.
I appreciate that.
Very good.
But the fact is that study took a long period of time and was probably well done and served to establish what those fees should be. And therefore, I think that that's where we ought to go.
Councilmember Burton.
I agree with Councilman Newton, so I'm going to make a motion that we approve the request regarding the reduction to the transportation impact fee by the 73,200, and what was that number?
262.99.
No, I want to go with the city's number. 73,275.14. Is that correct, Mr.
That is
Walker?
correct.
Okay. Based upon our current impact fees.
What about the water?
The fire impact.
And no change on the fire.
That
That's both.
that is both of them?
No, that is
Okay.
the road impact fee.
That's what I thought.
So no change on the fire. Just the road.
It is totally at the council's discretion as to what they want to do with either of those. If you choose to reduce the fire impact fee as well, that is totally up to you.
Councilmember Jacob.
Just for clarification, thank you, Mayor. In the staff report, the two reductions, the fire and the transportation, add up to 73,275.14. Oh, no, you're right, I'm sorry. That is that's the transportation. The fire comes to 82,1679. An additional.
Fee schedule.
Yeah, according to the fee schedule. So if your motion is going to be according to the fee schedule, you should probably give them both.
That's what you want.
Okay, go ahead and amend it.
Sure motion.
There's no second yet.
Yeah, that is the second. Okay, so let me change my motion to meet that their impact fees would be what there was today if they were to apply for it today, with the road impact and the fire together.
Second that.
We have a motion by Councilmember Burton, a second by Councilmember Newton. Discussion to the motion. Councilmember Anderson.
So Councilmember Newton, or not Newton, Councilmember Burton. So what you're saying, just for clarification for my benefit, is that we're approving this based on the May 25th, 2017 fee schedule. Okay, that's all I had. Thank you.
Councilmember Jacob.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, I agree in principle to what you're trying to do. I'm going to disagree, or I'm going to speak against the motion because I think we need to set a standard for this. What's to prevent, if we start going down this road of you applied it this day, then the fees changed, so now we give you a refund. What do we use as a cutoff time as to when they're no longer entitled to a refund? Does the guy who built the storage units 3 years ago get to come back and say, if I'd have built that today, my fee only would have been this much? So do we get to set some kind of a line in the sand as far as if it's before you start construction, if it's whatever it is? Right now, it's your application date, right? You pay your fees on your application date or according to your application date. So if we're going to change that, we should change that and then apply a consistent standard so that we're not stuck holding the bag for anybody and everybody who wants to appeal impact fees. Thanks.
Councilmember Burton.
They have, the city code provides them 30 days to appeal the fees. So if they didn't appeal the fees within 30 days, then they don't have the right to appeal the fees anymore. So someone who builds a building 3 years ago, 20 years ago, would not be able to come back and ask for a change. So it would still be there. And then we have corrected the problem because we have created a new thing for a warehouse that didn't exist before, and that's where this is coming from. Prior in the past, it was simply industrial. Now it's under a new one, which is warehouse, which uses a smaller impact, and that's where that comes from. So I think that would correct the problem.
Councilmember McConaughey.
Thank you, Mayor. I would also speak in favor of the motion. To speak to Councilmember Jacobs' concern, I'll also point out that the fee or the impact fee schedule would have been adopted earlier, but it was this council who delayed it a couple of times, primarily out of concern with the impact fees for multifamily versus single-family housing. So the intent of the council from, my dates might be off, but I think it was about February or so, the intent of the council was to ratify that fee schedule with those. And had we done that at that time and ratified all fees with the exception of the ones that we had concerns with, the applicant never would have had to appeal in the first place. Therefore, I'm not so concerned about the appeal being within 30 days. It's more, from my perspective, looking at this as we could have done things a little bit different as a council, and that's why I'm supportive of the appeal. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Jacob.
Thank you, Mayor. Just one point to both of those points, and then I'll be quiet for now. I make no promises. The original application was February 7th. Our new fee schedule was adopted May 25th. So if it's 30 days, this one doesn't apply. This one doesn't fit the criteria that you just gave. So just putting that out there. Also, the application on February 7th, when did our impact fee schedule originally come up? Was it before or after? You mentioned February. I don't have the dates in front of me either. When that originally came up, was that before or after February 7th? I don't know. So again, I'm just looking for a consistent standard that we can apply for future cases and not setting a precedent that we can't live with.
Councilmember Burton.
His appeal was before today.
Let's vote.
Councilmember Newton.
Yes.
Councilmember Anderson.
Yes.
Councilmember McConaughey.
Aye.
Councilmember Jacob.
No.
Councilmember Nichols.
Yes.
Mayor Rolfe.
Yes.
Councilmember Burton.
Yes.
The vote passes 6-1 in favor.
Consent item J, approve resolution 17-120, authorizing the mayor to execute a employment contract with the city manager, Mark R. Palish. Councilmember McConaughey, you had this item pulled.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to table this to no later than the second meeting of August.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember McConaughey, a second by Councilmember Jacob. Discussion to the motion. Seeing none, let's vote.
Councilmember McConaughey.
Aye.
Councilmember Burton.
Yes.
Councilmember Newton.
Aye.
Mayor Rolfe.
Yes.
Councilmember Jacob.
Yes.
Councilmember Anderson.
Yes.
Councilmember Nichols.
Yes.
The vote passes 7 in favor.
Public hearing item 6A, receive public input and consider for approval regarding Resolution 17-125, amending the General Fund, Parks, Capital Fund, and the Water Fund for the fiscal year 2016-2017 budget. Bill Piper?
Thanks, Mayor. What we're proposing tonight is to adopt amended budgets for the General Fund, Parks Capital Fund, and the Water Fund for the fiscal year ended 2016-2017, which begins July 1st, 2016, and then June 30th, 2017. In your packet are the items that are included for adjustment tonight, and if there aren't any questions with them, I could discuss each of those items, but in whatever you'd like to do, Mayor, if you'd like me to go
Are
over
there
that.
questions from council? I think we've searched this at least to everyone's purview. I think we're good. Thank you.
Thank you.
I will now open the public hearing for item 6A. Anyone in the public wishing to speak on this item, now would be the opportunity. Please.
Alexandra Ephraimov, 3735 Judd Circle, West Jordan. You know, I'm just a citizen, a plain old citizen. I don't have a master's degree. I don't have any kind of a degree, but when you're at college, that's it. But what I don't understand, you know, I keep saying, can we please have more transparency? Okay, we're saying amending the general fund parts. What are we amending? Are we amending it up? Are we amending it down? Can we please have an amount? I think it's anyway, I don't think it's wrong. I think it's wrong not to be transparent. When you're saying amending, the people that have attended all these meetings, they know, but a general citizen coming to our council meeting, not having attended all those meetings about the general fund, specifically Parks, Capital Fund, and Water Fund. We have Boy Scouts here that are doing their homework, trying to figure out what goes on at City Hall. Don't we want to let our Boy Scouts know that we do have transparency, that we are clear about what we're trying to do? So I'm just wondering if there's any way that we can put a dollar amount here. At least tell us up or down or a percentage or something. I think it's vague. I think it's wrong. I don't think it's transparent enough for the general people in West Jordan. I'm not talking about the politicians or the staff or people running for council or people running for mayor who do know. So I'm just asking for more transparency. I'd like to have a dollar amount or a percentage amount, up and down. Let's help our little Boy Scouts with their homework and help me as a plain citizen. Thank you.
Brian, do you have those, or Bill, do you have those figures, just so for the public? Just for the public and for the record, this is the current fiscal year that ends Friday, this adjustment to balance the budget. Do you have the actual figures for those funds, Bill?
I've got all those figures. The general fund amendment is $1,042,583. The Parks Capital Fund is $300,000, and the Water Fund amendment is $396,215. And the result is an amended budget for the general fund of $65,190,980. The Parks Capital Fund is $1,608,178, and Water Fund is $24,674,486.
Thank you.
Mayor, can I get
Councilmember Jacob.
Can I get clarification on one of those numbers? Sorry, I'll stop. You ought to set a timer for me some nights, I think. Just in the packet, Bill, on the general fund, it says the amendment is $42,583 for an amended budget of $64,199,080. That's the number in the packet. You mentioned a general fund amendment of over $1 million.
You did mention 65.
Is there an amendment?
Yeah, there's one in front of you, there was one emailed to you, and there's one online.
There's an amended amendment to the budget that I didn't look at yet. I apologize. Thank you.
Councilmember Burton.
Mayor, is there a way that the general public could have had these numbers before now?
All of them are posted online, and they can see them, as well as there's always a paper form at the recorder's office prior to council, so yeah, they're always available to the citizens. We are transparent. Bill, did you have a comment? Okay. Anyone else wishing to speak from the public on public hearing item 6A? I will close the public hearing for item 6A and return to the council for discussion and/or a motion. Councilmember Jacob.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to provide clarification for the public as well, just so you know exactly what we're amending. The city attorney's office received a grant for $3,000, so it warrants a corresponding increase because they spent it, of $3,000 out of the budget for the attorney's office. The police department has received grants and reimbursements that add up to about $39,000, warranting, again, they spent the money because that's what it's there for, $39,000 in increases. The Parks Department is transferring $300,000 of existing money that is in the general fund to the Parks Capital Fund. It's for bridges and landscape renovations and stuff like that. The Public Works Department is transferring $396,215 from reserves in the water fund in order to purchase and install hardware and software for the SCADA system. That was a contract that the council approved in a previous council meeting. And then there's $1 million for a lawsuit settlement is the latest piece of that, which made the news. You guys probably heard about that. So that's the detail. I just wanted to throw that out there just so everybody had what we had. Thanks.
Just so everyone knows, this is all posted in the agenda, and so we don't have to repeat all these every council night. If you want to, you can go to the agenda and research all those. Councilmember McConaughey.
Thank you, Mayor. Move to approve Resolution 17-125.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember McConaughey and a second by Councilmember Anderson. Discussion to the motion. Let's vote.
Mayor Rolfe,
Yes.
Councilmember Newton,
Yes.
Councilmember Anderson,
Yes.
Councilmember Nichols,
Yes.
Councilmember McConaughey,
Aye.
Councilmember Burton,
Yes.
Councilmember Jacob.
Yes.
The vote passes 7 in favor.
Public hearing item 6B, receive public input and consider for approval ordinance 17-32 regarding a preliminary development plan for Anayas Market located at 1594 West, 7800 South in the CCF zoning district. Trio Design, Inc., Brittany Johnson, applicant. Scott?
Thanks, Mayor. Normally, the council won't see developments of this size come before you, but because this revised site is located in the city center frame, it requires a preliminary development plan. Nanette Larson is here for specifics to the review.
Because this is located in the city center frame district and the transit station oriented overlay district, the preliminary development plan does require that city council approve, does require city council approval. On June 6th, The Planning Commission forwarded a positive recommendation to the City Council to approve the preliminary development plan, and that positive recommendation came with a 7-0 vote. A portion of this development plan also includes a major subdivision for the 2 parcels located on 7800 South and a preliminary site plan. Both the major subdivision and the preliminary site plan with the landscaping plan also received approval from the Planning Commission earlier this month. Staff is recommending that the City Council approve the preliminary development plan with the 2 conditions listed in the staff report. And the preliminary development plan was also attached to the staff report as attachment A. So a portion of the proposal is to demolish the 2 structures that are along 7800 South. These structures are appear to be residential in nature, though they've been used as commercial for at least the last decade. So the proposal is to demolish those 2 structures and to build a single structure for NIS Market, which is currently located to the east. So NIS Market will vacate their lease for the building, I believe it's 1 building over to the east, and move where they would have ownership of this new building. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer those.
Questions from council? Looks like you're off the hot seat, Annette. We're sorry to be losing you, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
I will now open the public hearing for item 6B. Anyone here wishing to speak on this item, now would be the opportunity. Please.
Alexandra Ephraimo, 3735 Judd Circle. She mentioned something about landscaping, but in detail of the landscaping, I have noticed that, I mean, this doesn't apply to this public hearing, but we are a desert, so I don't know the landscaping type that is applied to this area, and I suggest that from now on, with our economic development, with all new things that are going around, that we have rocks, perennial plants, plain dirt, and not grass. I can't believe the grass that's out in front of us here. But we are dry. We are a desert. We're a building that I go to. I can't believe the landscaping. They have rocks, perennial plants, dirt, and it looks beautiful. You don't have to cut it. You don't have to water. I don't know how much they water because they're perennial, but you don't have to water that much. But I'm hoping that in the landscaping that they have, that it's not grass. So I don't know, there was no detail in that. And I'm not sure I understand about the agenda. How many people in West Jordan have computers? I'll bet half of the people here in West Jordan have computers that they can research what's going on at City Hall. And even so, if you have a computer in front of you, you have to know what title to type in. It just doesn't fall into the computer. You can't talk to the computer and say, I want this. You have to know how to type it in. So it's difficult. It's difficult for me. I don't have a computer. And I know many people that don't have computers. So to say that it's online and to say, I don't know where the agenda is, but I'm just saying for people that don't have a computer, that are so busy, they don't have time at home to be looking it up, they come to City Hall. They come to our council meeting to see what's going on. That's what I'm talking about, transparency. But anyway, I'm hoping that the landscaping does not involve grass. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak on item 6B in public hearing? I will close the public hearing for item 6B and return to the council for discussion and/or motion. Councilmember McConaughey.
Thank you, Mayor. If there are no questions from the council, I'm ready to make a motion.
That would be in order.
Based on the information and findings set forth in the staff report and the evidence and explanations received today, as well as the unanimous 7-0 vote from the Planning Commission in support of this, I move that the City Council approve the preliminary development plan for Anayas Market located at 1594 West, 7800 South, with those two conditions that were listed in the staff report.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember McConaughey, a second by Councilmember Burton. Discussion to the motion. Hold on one sec, Chad. I'll get you in just one sec. Councilmember Jacob.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to say bon voyage to Nanette. It's been a pleasure to work with her on the council for the last year and a half and for a couple of years on the Planning Commission before that. I believe she was actually hired to replace Scott when Scott left the first time, and now he's back. So I fully expect Nanette to come back someday. So I just want to say it's been a pleasure. I don't know, did she leave? No, still there. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Councilmember Nichols.
Thank you. I was just going to echo Councilmember Jacobs' comment. Thank you, Nanette. Appreciate your service.
Councilmember McConaughey.
Thank you, Mayor. I saw our attorney's mic flash on, and I'm guessing it's probably to request that I clarify what those conditions are for the motion. So for clarification, those conditions were a detailed view of the plaza, or excuse me, the conditions of approval would include, number one, a detailed view of the plaza in front of the building will be included with the final development plan submittal, and two, light fixture detail and a photometric plan will be included with the final development plan. So for clarification, those are those two conditions that I referenced in the motion.
Okay. Let's vote.
Councilmember Jacob?
Yes.
Councilmember McConaughey?
Aye.
Councilmember Burton?
Yes.
Councilmember Anderson?
Yes.
Councilmember Newton?
Yes.
Councilmember Nichols?
Yes.
Mayor Rolfe?
Yes.
The vote passes 7 in favor.
Public hearing item 6C, receive public input and consider for approval Resolution 17-126, amending the salary schedule for the fiscal year 2017-2018. John Gardner.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. As you are all aware, with the passing of the budget last week, we always bring the updated salary schedule to council meeting for approval. Of course, it lists all of the any of the changes that were included in the budget that you passed last week. If you have any questions about any of those, I can certainly talk about those.
Questions for John? It's like you're off the hook. I'll now open the public hearing for public hearing item 6C. If you're here to speak on this item, now's the opportunity. Seeing no one, I will close the public hearing and return to the council. Councilmember McConaughey.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to adopt Resolution 17-126, amending the salary schedule for fiscal year 2017-18.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember McConaughey, a second by Councilmember Newton. Discussion to the motion. Let's vote.
Councilmember Burton?
Yes.
Mayor Rolfe?
Yes.
Councilmember Jacob?
Yes.
Councilmember McConaughey?
Aye.
Councilmember Newton?
Yes.
Councilmember Nichols?
Yes.
Councilmember Anderson?
Yes.
The vote passes 7 in favor.
Public hearing item 6D. This item has been continued from May 24th, 2017. Receive public input and consider for approval Ordinance 17-25 regarding an amendment to the 2009 West Jordan Municipal Code, Title 13, Chapter 5, Section F, Manufacturing Zones, providing additional regulations regarding warehouse, self-storage in the M1 zone, citywide applicability, City of West Jordan applicant,
Scott.
Thanks, Mayor. Members of the council, this will look very familiar. We've been discussing this land use issue for several months now. Briefly, there are two options that we brought back to the City Council from based on our discussion in May. And regardless of what the council decides tonight, the council will need to clearly state which option. That's not really articulated too well just by reading the ordinance 17-25. So briefly, the two options. Option one, back in March, we brought this issue back to the City Council. We presented 4 different options. The council was in favor of moving forward with option 3, and that's really small on the screen, so I apologize. But basically, it would require warehouse self-storage use to obtain a conditional use in the M1 zone, or light industrial zone. And in addition to that, require or have regulations regarding spacing. So in effect, it would provide some protection to our industrial parks where we're seeing a very large volume of this type of application come in. For example, I just got an update from our building department, and over the last 10 months, we've had 9 different storage unit applications come through, and most of those are on prime, easily developable pieces of property that would normally facilitate other industrial development. So that's option one. The other option that was discussed back in May was to get rid of the spacing requirement, still require conditional use, still limit it to the M1 zone, but instead of the spacing, limit it to irregular shaped lots, which is another good option. We have a definition already in our code that talks about irregular shaped lots, and that's in your packet and shown up there on the screen if you can read it. But those are the two options that we brought back to the council, and I can talk in more depth about why we feel that this is needed at the city. But I'll be happy to answer any questions, Mayor.
Questions for Scott? Councilmember McConaughey.
Thank you, Mayor. So this is, I'm looking at the electronic attachment to the agenda. This is on page 10. Just a quick side note, the second option is really, really hard to read. It came across on the scanned copy, incredibly dark, almost illegible.
Okay.
With the first option, your comment helped clarify earlier, but it says warehouse, self-service storage. So it almost sounds as if you're talking about no warehouse or self-service, or excuse me, or no warehouse, or self-service storage shall be used within 1/2 mile of any other warehouse, that comma is kind of throwing me off in the descriptor warehouse. Is that necessary, or could we get away with just saying no self-service storage use, because that word warehouse is just causing problems for me?
The only reason why I put that in there is that is how our code currently lists that in 13-2-3. That's the definition as listed in the code. I can see where that would cause some confusion, but I was just simply cutting and pasting out of the definition section of Title 13.
Okay. So thank you. That answers the question. I'll come back to that after the public hearing.
Councilmember Newton.
I have some concerns when we start doing things like this, because all of a sudden we say we've got a parcel here, it can go here, it can go here, but it can't go here because it doesn't fit the schedule, but it would be fine if we didn't have that. So I would suggest that we let the free market handle the situation. It would be akin to saying we ought to limit how many restaurants we have in an area, or how many service stations we have in a particular area. I think we need to be really careful about that. So I would recommend that we go with the option 4, which is to do nothing. I will make that a motion.
We need a public hearing.
Oh, that's right. Sorry.
I will now open the public hearing for item 6D. Anyone wishing to speak on this item, now would be the opportunity. Seeing no one, I will close the public hearing for item 6D and return to the council. Councilmember Newton.
I would recommend that we go with option 4 as listed in the packet. I'll make that a motion. Thank you.
Okay. The motion will die for lack of second. Councilmember Burton.
I would move that we go with the new option 1 or the old option 3. Is that correct, Scott? Are those the same?
The spacing?
Yes.
Okay. And what distance?
Half mile.
Okay.
I'll second for conversation.
We have a motion by Councilmember Burton, second by Councilmember McConaughey. Discussion to the motion. Councilmember Jacob.
I would just like to have some more information. I only have one staff report, so I don't know what the new option 1 is versus the old option 3 versus the old option 17. So if you could just clarify exactly what that means.
This is what we had discussed last time, and the general consensus was on 3, but we decided to look at the opportunity of bringing back an additional option. And we asked staff to come back with 2 options for us, which is what they did. So originally, number 3 is what I was going for, which is one that's shown on your screen right now. And that shows you if it's a half-mile buffer, everything within half-mile of where the storage unit is now would not be approved for a storage unit unless we do a conditional permission to do a storage unit there. So generally, they wouldn't be able to do that. This still permits us to do storage units, and it helps spread them out so it all comes together and not suck in the high-value industrial areas. And that's why I recommended that one.
Councilmember McConaughey.
Thank you, Mayor. In many ways, I agree with what Councilmember Newton's suggesting. Often I prefer to let the market do its thing. In this case, I'm not as optimistic that it'll do the right thing at the right time. As we're looking at the different, I'm trying really hard not to trip over what I'm going to say, so hopefully this comes across right. There are very few places where it's appropriate, where I feel it's appropriate for the government to step in and set limitations about what can and cannot happen. And there are very, very few reasons where that would be appropriate. When we're talking about the future land use and what applications are appropriate, there are certain things that benefit the city in general and some that really don't. As we look at our future land use map, we're trying to balance to make sure that the development occurs is metered, it's measured, and it's something that's supportive and sustainable and overall contributes in a beneficial manner to the community. I think what we've seen with self-storage is that it's growing faster than everything else, and some of these other projects, some of the other industrial or commercial projects take longer time to evolve. They require, there's higher barriers to entry. They're not as cheap and as expensive to get into as self-storage. Consequently, because they take longer and self-storage is so quick and easy, we're seeing a surplus of that in the number of the requests that we're seeing for the permits. I don't necessarily want to stop it, but I do want to make sure the growth is metered and measured. I don't necessarily like the idea of saying everything's got to be spaced out half mile, but I think that works as an interim solution for a number of years until we can get the rest of our development to catch up. Similar to what we did when we were looking at different types of multifamily development. We had to put a tool in place to make sure that that didn't grow faster than the rest of our city. I think we need a tool in place to make sure self-storage doesn't outpace everything else, because if it does, that's going to have a detrimental impact on quite a few aspects of the city. So while I'm leery of it, I think that currently this is the best approach to take to make sure that we can provide that balanced development that we need to ensure our residents have. Thank you.
I have a substitute motion. I move that we approve proposal number 2.
Second.
We have a motion by Mayor Rolfe and a second by Councilmember Jacob. Discussion to the substitute motion. Councilmember Jacob.
Just as a clarification, is this the new option 2 or
Okay,
or is this the option 2 that's in the packet?
This is the only option that I believe we're talking about tonight. The one in the packet, exactly.
Yes, this one would be the regular shaped lot.
Can you throw the 2 options back up on the screen?
Sure.
Just so I can.
Again, it's going to be
Compare it.
small. I don't know how it shows up on your screen. But so option 2 is limiting to the M1 zone, requiring a conditional use permit, and only allowing it on irregular shaped lots as currently defined in our city code.
Okay, and this does not have a spacing requirement,
No.
just a zoning and a lot shape?
Correct.
And those are the only 2 criteria for the conditional use permit? Or will they still have to come to the planning commission for other negative mitigation?
Yes, the conditional use will have to go to the planning commission, but they have very specific, very specific criteria that they follow. It's very black and white objective, and so that'll help mitigate any potential impacts to neighboring properties if it goes that far.
Excellent, thank you.
I just want to speak in favor of the motion. In talking with staff and going over this for a few months now, I believe that representing the citizens for the tax base, these areas are exactly perfect, in my opinion, for self-storage, and it allows a use for those irregular areas, those areas under high voltage power and things like that. We certainly encourage them at these locations, but protects some of the larger industrial uses for something that generates a large tax base for the citizens. Councilmember Newton.
I agree with you 100% that these irregular shaped lots work well for that kind of thing. I just don't think we should limit it to just that. But that's definitely a good use for those things. Thank you.
Councilmember McConaughey.
Thank you, Mayor. And I worry that this comment may undermine the purpose, but I would be okay with, I'd be okay with saying this needs to be restricted to irregular shaped lots if there's some sort of appeal process for lots that may be regularly shaped but otherwise not really usable. For example, if we have a rectangular lot that's underneath a power corridor or something like that, it may be regular shaped, but it would be appropriate for self-storage. So I worry that adding an appeal process, though, might still cause the same problem that we have right now with the inordinate amount of applications. So I'll just share that for thought.
There is a process they can appeal through the, I can't remember the committee. Yes, Scott.
Well, there are built-in appeal processes in our code, but they're specifically regulated. I don't know if you're, Mayor, if you're referring to variances through the Board of Adjustment.
That's what I was thinking.
That currently really wouldn't apply to a situation like this where we have a Board of Adjustment would review reduction in setbacks and bulk standards, not use. Use variances are not allowed, and Mr. Bricky can probably elaborate more on that.
That would be difficult to sort of regulate on this, on if it's self-imposed, particularly if they're, I'm struggling with trying to come up with some concepts of ways to get around that, but I can't right now come off the top of my head of ways to make that so it's unique to the shape that we're trying to identify, but then preserve it for regular shaped property lots.
If that was the desire of the council, my preference would be to move ahead, and then we could certainly look at creating additional language that would give us that flexibility. And you're right, Councilman McConaughey. If we do open that door, we have to make sure there's very specific objective criteria that's we can apply uniformly. Otherwise, we don't want to be called out as being arbitrary in any decision. And so we can certainly look at that if that's the desire of the council.
So let me change and ask a little bit of a different question. Can you briefly articulate exactly the problem that we're trying to solve? I know we're having a lot of these applications come in. Are most of them being denied? Is it taking an excessive amount of time from staff just to have it turned down, or what? Could you clarify what we're trying to fix so that we don't cause a different problem by trying to address this one?
So over the past about 18 months, we've seen a huge uptick in this type of application. My staff and I have been doing this for a long time, and we have we understand how many site plan applications that we normally would get, and we get that the economy is moving up. And so in general, we're more busy, but the amount of storage unit applications is quite significant. And so as we began to look at the long-term ramifications of these storage units taking prime industrial property, we started to ask questions of the people coming in requesting these types of developments. And we were educated on the situation where rent across the Wasatch Front is going up, and it's more economical for business owners, et cetera, to rent storage units to store merchandise and other materials in lesser, or in areas where it's least expensive. And so it became apparent that we were subsidizing other commercial development along the Wasatch Front, where we had a huge influx of these storage units to support economic development outside West Jordan. We looked at the amount of jobs that these businesses create. We looked at the property tax and sales tax, and we looked overall at the city and said our land is a finite resource. Once it's gone, it's gone. And so we wanted to be really respectful of the citizens of West Jordan, and we thought that as we looked at highest and best use, storage units, while they do serve a purpose, are very, very low on the highest and best use totem pole. So that's why we brought it back to the council, and that wasn't brief, so I apologize.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Councilmember Burton.
Thank you, Mayor. I will speak against the substitute motion and hope to go back to the original motion. I think this one is too tight and is eliminating some spots that may be very good for storage units and not usable for other things simply because of its shape. And I like the idea of the other one. We can spread them out and provide it. I think storage units are necessary for our city, for business, and for residences. However, I think having some control would be a good idea, so I would oppose this option to go back to option one.
Let's vote. Oh, so let's wait a minute.
While we're waiting for clarification, are we voting on the substitute motion?
Yes.
I apologize. Okay, the substitute motion. Councilmember Burton.
No.
Councilmember Newton.
No.
Councilmember McConaughey.
No.
Councilmember Anderson.
Yes.
Councilmember Jacob.
Yes.
Mayor Rolfe.
Yes.
Councilmember Nichols. Sorry.
Yes.
The vote passes 4-3.
Public hearing item 6E, receive public input and consider for approval ordinance 17-33, amending the 2009 West Jordan City Code Title 13, Section 13-51-10 regarding development plans, citywide applicability, City of West Jordan applicant. Scott?
Thanks, Mayor. Member of the council, back in May, we brought a resolution to the council to provide some clarification for the zoning administrator in reviewing amendments to development plans. At the time that the city council adopted the resolution, the council also directed staff to codify that resolution and bring it back as ordinance, and that's what this is before you tonight.
Any questions for Scott? I will now open the public hearing for items 6E. Anyone here wishing to speak on this item? Seeing no one, I will close the public hearing and return to the council for discussion or motion. Councilmember Burton.
I'd like to make the motion that based upon the information and findings set forth in the staff report and upon the recommendation of the Planning Commission, I move that the City Council approve amending the West Jordan 2009 City Code subsection 13-5J-10E development plan process with updated procedures for variations from approved plans and development standards.
Second.
Did you state ordinance 17-33 in your motion?
I did not.
Please state that before the second.
Which is ordinance 17-33. Thank you.
We have a motion by Councilmember Burton and a second by Councilmember McConaughey. Discussion of the motion. Let's vote.
Councilmember Nichols.
Yes.
Mayor Rolfe.
Yes.
Councilmember Burton.
Yes.
Councilmember Newton.
Yes.
Councilmember Anderson.
Yes.
Councilmember McConaughey.
Aye.
Councilmember Jacob.
Yes.
Vote passes 7 in favor.
Public hearing item 6F, receive public input and consider for approval ordinance 17-34, amending the 2009 West Jordan City Code, Section 13-2-3, definitions, defining self-serve and automated car wash facilities, Section 13-5E-3, permitted and conditional uses, establishing automated car wash facilities as a conditional use in the SC1 zone, citywide applicability, Lone Star Builders applicant. Scott.
Thanks, Mayor. I'll ask Larry to go over the details of this text amendment.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The applicant has found a piece of property at 3800 West and 7800 South, just across from Jordan Landing, that was rezoned a few months ago from a professional office to an SC1 zone. The applicant is in the business of building quick quack automated car washes and wishes to build one at this location. However, the SC1 zone at this time does not allow automated car washes or as a permitted or conditional use. The SC1 zone is generally thought of as a neighborhood commercial zone, and As you can see on this map, I've plotted, or at least outlined with these yellow triangles, where the SC1 zones are in the city. I did omit one where Bland Nursery is also SC1 zone down the road here. In the ordinance, it says the neighborhood commercial zone should be in neighborhoods. However, if you notice, all these SC1 zones are either at the intersection or border on very busy arterial streets. And so they really function more as just a normal commercial zone. And so the applicant wishes to locate right at the edge of 3800 West and 7800 South. I won't go into the site plan because that's not what we're talking about. However, they wish to amend the SC1 use table and allow automated car washes as a conditional use. And what that does is give the Planning Commission the ability to look at automated car washes that go in an SC1 zone and propose or put conditions upon those uses that would mitigate any impacts to the neighborhood. And then it also defines what an automated car wash is. And for the purposes, an automated car wash is where the person sits in their car and it's pulled through by machinery at the car wash. They don't drive through it. It really is pulled through the tunnel or whatever. It's an automated car wash. That's what they do. So they're not driving through it. So there's generally not any ability for, safety concerns and that type of thing. The Planning Commission recommended approval by a unanimous vote, and staff does likewise. Do you have any questions for me?
Councilmember McConaughey.
Thank you, Mayor. So the staff report references the town hall meeting that was held where the applicant shared some information and some thoughts about this. During that meeting, the applicant made a representation that the change in ordinance would limit the hours of operation that were allowable for an automated car wash in an SC1 zone. I don't see anything right away that puts any sort of limitation or restrictions on the hours of operation in what's been proposed. Am I missing something?
What the applicant is, I guess, I didn't go to the town hall meeting, but the Planning Commission meeting, Quick Quack Car Wash operates from 7 a.m. till 9 p.m. in the summer, and then they close, basically as the sun goes down in the wintertime at 5:30 or 6 o'clock.
So I'm not necessarily concerned about the particular business that's in there, because they could come in, they could build it, at some point they could sell it to somebody else. So somebody else may have a 24-hour service. Is there anything in the ordinance that restricts those hours of operation to a certain time?
No, but what Quick Quack did is they did submit a narrative that defines their operation, how they face their building, hours of operation, that type of thing. And what we could do is use that as a template, as a conditional use permit. So the conditions would be upon that property. So if it is sold to a different car wash user, they still have to abide by those conditions.
But since this is applicable citywide, perhaps another parcel where this would now be allowed, they may not be subject to this.
I said that we'd use that as a template for all of these. And so we generally look at what we've done in the past, and if it makes sense, we'll use that as a recommended conditions of approval to the Planning Commission.
Thank you. Councilmember Burton.
Thank you. Are service stations permitted in SC1?
Yes.
Would a service station with a car wash be permitted in SC1?
Not right now.
So a service station without a car wash would be permitted right now?
Yes.
Thank you.
Councilmember Anderson.
So on this particular one, we're just talking about changing the language in the ordinance. We're not doing a site plan. We're not.
No.
But I do agree with Councilmember McConaughey that my preference would be that it's not 24/7.
No, we would not. The Planning Commission would not allow that next to a neighborhood. So.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor. That's all I have.
Thanks, Larry. We'll now open the public hearing for item 6.8. F. Anyone wishing to speak on this item? Now would be the opportunity.
My name is Jeff Burnson, 7324 South Union Park Avenue in Midvale. One of the applicants, have another member of the applicant party sitting with me here, Joseph Ernest, who may come up after me. But just to say, it was my understanding that in the SC1 zone, if you have a service station that comes in, they can be 24/7, 365, as far as their opening. And also if they have a car wash as an ancillary use to their service station, that they can include that. That was at least what I was understanding and have understood. That aside, we have worked diligently with the neighborhood and the neighbors specifically adjacent to the property that we're looking at. We happen to have 2 of the 6 parcels that are in the SC1 zone in your city, so it's interesting we have a third of those, but that's neither here nor there. Because it is a citywide issue and a citywide zone change, we thought it was important, number one, to differentiate between a regular car wash, which is basically a 24/7 operation with vacuums that are exposed and generally towards the back of the property, which can cause significant noise for the surrounding residents. And again, they're operational 24/7. An automated car wash, by virtue of what it is, has to be employee managed. And so you're going to have employees there during the hours of operation. Vacuums do not operate when employees are not there. The other thing we understood on the conditional use is that under that conditional use, the city could indeed require hours of operation, which we completely concur with, because it's not our intention to cause problems for residents. So in the one car wash company we're talking to currently, they're a 7 to 7 in the winter and a 7 to 9 in the summer. Great operation. If you have a chance to see any of them, whether it be a Quick Quack, a Mr. Car Wash, or any one of the other national brands that are coming into our city and our community, you'll see that they are well run, well managed, and one of the most important factors is they really conserve on water, and they give people an opportunity in a neighborhood to be availed of other services that are not otherwise available to them, perhaps, unless they travel a distance to another car wash, for example. Right now, just in water use, I'm probably taking some of Joseph's steam out here because he can probably answer some of this better than I can. But right now, in a good car wash, you're looking at somewhere between 9 and 10 gallons of water per car. If you wash your car on your driveway, you're probably somewhere between 150 and 200 gallons of water that just runs down into the sewer. And this water is basically treated before it goes off premise, so it's completely compatible with wildlife, etc. My time's up. So if you have any questions, you can either ask me or I'm going to defer to Joseph and he can give you more information as to the operation of the car wash itself.
Thank you.
Joseph Ernest, 705 Hawks Rest Drive, Mapleton, Utah, way down south. I thought I'd take some of the time. I work with Quick Quack, and I'll speak to the automated car washes. Jeff, who spoke previously, did so as well, specifically speaking to the water conservation, which is really important. As a community effort, we're hopeful that we can get the citizens out of their driveways and into the automated car washes. The technology that's associated with an automated car wash these days is significant in water conservation. And a lot of these companies, I can speak for ours in particular, are part of water conservation groups within the car wash industry. In addition to that, other concerns that may come up with an automated car wash is the cleanliness and professionalism associated with the site. The reason the automated car washes as a distinction is so important is because most often, almost all the time, that's going to be a car wash company, a national company with national standards rather than a one-off car wash or a self-serve car wash, which is not aesthetically pleasing and tends to not be maintained very well. So making the distinction of having an automated car wash, a car wash conditional use in any one of these 6 sites is a benefit and will be aesthetically pleasing to the city of West Jordan. In addition, on this particular corner, we're anxious to beautify it. We're anxious to. We know that once it's developed, the crime will be decreased just by having our employees there and keeping it looking good and aesthetically pleasing. Other than that, Quick Quack, if given the opportunity, we're anxious and excited to be a commercial citizen of West Jordan. I know for our company in particular, we're very, very involved in the community. And in fact, prior to any ribbon cutting we run a charity day where we find someone who needs our help, and we donate car washes for a day and match any contributions made during that time to anyone in need. In our Highland opening, we were able to give a check of $10,400 to a senior in high school who has a very rare form of cancer, and it was just a great experience. Other than that, the moment it's opened, 10 free days of premium car washes. We've washed about 70,000 cars in Utah for free, and we're excited to do it for the citizens of West Jordan as well. Above and beyond that, you'll see our name at high school games. We'll be sponsoring teams. We'll be sponsoring Little League. We'll be very involved in the community, and we look forward to that. We have a mascot, Quaggles the duck, and you'll see our float at the parades. You'll see Quaggles at Easter egg hunts. We have an awesome float, and we're excited to be, if given the opportunity, a very responsible commercial citizen here. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? I will close the public hearing item and return to the council for discussion or motion. Councilmember Burton.
Thank you, Mayor. Based on the information and findings set forth in this staff report, and upon the evidence and explanations received today, I move that the City Council approve Ordinance 17-34, amending the 2009 City Code, defining automated car wash and adding automated car wash as a conditional use in the SC1 Neighborhood Shopping Center zone and permitted use in all other commercial zones.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Burton and a second by Councilmember Jacob. Discussion to the motion. Councilmember Jacob.
Thank you, Mayor. I think this is a really positive step in the right direction as far as allowing more businesses to operate in more places in our city. The conditional use permit process, something I highly recommend everybody sit in on a conditional use hearing, would mitigate any negative impacts that any particular site might have on any particular application. Obviously, the applicant who spoke in the public hearing is speaking about a specific location and a specific business, but remember, this is citywide applicability. I think this is really a step in the right direction as far as allowing businesses a little more freedom to operate in our city. And the conditional use permit process does a great job as far as controlling any downside. So I'm in favor of the motion. Thank you.
Councilmember McConaughey.
Thank you, Mayor. I have concerns with, I have a number of concerns with the way the process worked for this. Specifically with the town hall, there were certain representations made that don't seem like they're included in the proposed ordinance, even though there were statements made at that town hall that either outright stated or implied that they would. That said, I don't feel like those process issues are necessarily the fault of the applicant. So while I have concerns with how we got to this point, I can indeed be supportive of the motion that's on the table. Thank you.
Let's vote.
Councilmember McConaughey?
Aye.
Councilmember Burton?
Yes.
Councilmember Newton?
Aye.
Mayor Rolfe?
Yes.
Councilmember Jacob?
Yes.
Councilmember Anderson?
Yes.
Councilmember Nichols?
Yes.
The vote passes 7 in favor.
Public hearing item 6G, continued from May 24th, 2017. Receive public input and consider for approval Ordinance 17-35, amending the 2009 West Jordan Municipal Code, Title 13, zoning, adding Chapter 18, creating an urban forestry code. Brian Clegg.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The proposed new chapter in the zoning ordinance, it was initiated by staff in the Parks Department. There was a primary concern with the current ordinance about safety and the urban forester's authority to address those safety concerns. So we met with planning, city attorneys. It's been through the Planning Commission. The real intent is to allow the urban forester to better maintain the public trees that we have, 13,000 plus, to the best health of the tree, which will ensure more mature trees in the city's urban forest and establish standards for the beautification of the city. Another objective is in creating this chapter is to protect the safety and welfare of the West Jordan residents. This chapter will allow the urban forester to remove or alter a tree that may create a hazardous condition. It also allows staff to prune or remove trees interfering with city utilities, regulatory signs. So in a nutshell, that's the gist of the ordinance. Ty Nielsen's present, our urban forester is present if you have any questions. Thank you.
Questions from council? Councilmember Burton.
So this decision to whether to remove the trees or not would be made by one person? Is that what that's telling us?
Well, ultimately, somebody's got to take the fall. And so, but when there is a circumstance that arises, I consult with my bosses and everybody involved before acting. But in the case like the gypsy moth that was located in the city of Orem, we were hopeful that the state forester would help in the abatement of the problem, but they don't. They just counseled and advised and left the cities to fend for themselves. And with the impending emerald ash borer that's currently been located in Colorado, and we're just waiting for them to jump the fence to get here, we need to be able to have a way to be able to respond also. And currently, we don't have any way to abate any problems unless they're city owned. So, did that answer your question? That I consult with park staff from director on down and anyone else that is a shareholder, I guess you'd say.
Mayor, if I could follow up.
Please.
Thank you, Zach. So if the tree is city-owned, we can do that anyway right now, is that correct?
Correct.
So this will let us remove trees that are not city-owned without
Correct.
going through the owner's permission?
So there are trees that if they can be proven to be a nuisance or a help to other trees, this will give us the authority to abate the tree before it spreads and takes out all the trees in the city. So
Again, the question is, can we remove those trees that don't belong to the city without
Yes.
the owner's permission?
Yes, we could. But that doesn't mean that they wouldn't be consulted or talked with or explained, we wouldn't be just going and seizing things. We would actually work with them and help them to understand the situation and then have the resource to be able to do it. One case in point that I forget the name of the school that's right on 78, right?
Columbia.
East of
It's Columbia.
Columbia School, right where the kids walk from the apartments into the school. The house right on the corner has 4 dead trees. I've been here for almost 2 years, and those trees have been dead the whole time. and we're very fortunate that they haven't fallen down. But I have no authority, or not even code enforcement has anything that tells them that they need to remove these hazardous trees. And this will allow us to do this. The intent is not to go and police non-public trees, but to abate hazardous nuisance trees.
Okay. And if I might deviate for just a minute, as I recall, it wasn't that long ago that UDOT required us to remove some trees along 90th South, and then we removed those trees, I would say prematurely, because I think we took out more than we should have to meet what they're saying.
On 90th South?
On 90th South, because that's a state road. And but are those trees owned by the city, or are those trees owned by UDOT on 90th South?
The property is UDOT. However, they require us to maintain the park strip. And so they are city trees, and they required that we follow their ordinance, which, unlike ours, it was a lot stricter, and they had they have a scale according to the speed as to how much clearance has to be, and we had just, Dave Naylor, when he was the urban forester, had just completed that street of planting every spot, and then we had to remove them.
Yeah. Thank you.
Councilmember Jacob.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate your intent, and that you don't have an intent to go and pull out somebody's tree without asking or working with them. I am leery, however, of allowing staff allowing a code to be written that, oh, we're not going to enforce it that way, the way that it's written. Although you could theoretically go in and take out a tree at any time if you determine it to be, a nuisance or whatever. Not only that, criminal action could also be brought against the property owner according to the proposal here. And I can appreciate that's not how you would enforce it. However, someday you will retire or find a better job in another city. I don't know.
Not possible.
Bless you,
Public
sir.
record.
Bless you, sir. You may be promoted. Somebody else may come along who that's not direction to staff. Somebody else may come along who's not so benevolent and who may just want to go around and pull out trees, and this law would allow them to do that. So I am leery. A few years ago, the graffiti ordinance was discussed, the graffiti abatement ordinance. It would have prohibited the carrying of a can of spray paint down a street because that was public property. Now, of course, we're not going to enforce it that way, but it would have been written that way. And so I'm really very hesitant to approve an ordinance that allows things that we're not going to do it that way. Well, let's write the ordinance how we are going to do it, not write it broad and say, oh, we're not going to enforce it like that. We're going to be nice and we're going to work with people. Well, maybe we are, maybe we aren't. Maybe you are, but maybe the next guy isn't. And I'd hate to put in code permission to do something that we're not going to do.
My response to that is that even if I should die and you have to replace me with another urban forester, the process would be to hire one who is a certified arborist who is obligated to follow ANSI standards, which is referred to in the ordinance, which is a National Standards Institute that dictates how you're supposed to act, and it's hard to know every circumstance so that you could say, well, in this circumstance we would respond this way and this way only, but then you have one that's almost like that, but it's a little bit different, and so you need to you need to be able to have some discretion. But without the discretion, then you have what we're going to have is one of these days, one of these little microbursts is going to take down one of those 4 trees, and there's going to be injuries. And then we will be held liable because we know about that, and we haven't done anything to be able to abate that issue. And I could take you on any street and show you similar infractions or hazards that we need to be able to address. But we currently have no way to do it.
Councilmember Anderson.
Yeah, and this is mainly for our attorney, Mr. Bricky. On a tree, and I'm just getting clarification for me, but if it's a tree that's not owned by the city, a non-public tree, do we have the ability to do that without the consent, or is that a taking that we have to reimburse the owner?
It is a taking, and it's a property right, and the ordinance actually sets forth a process. It's in 13-18-12, where I would ask for verification that the tree was a dangerous or a hazardous condition. So those are trees that are blocking stop signs, trees that impede the viewing of crosswalks, hedges, or sort of branches that drop into corners and drop the sight triangle, they call it, impedes that. When we can verify by way of verification of an affidavit that would say there is safety issues, this ordinance gives the city some safe ground, safe harbor to make that claim to a property owner. That doesn't mean the property owner isn't going to say, disagree with those assertions, but at least we're not acting arbitrarily, capriciously, and based simply on the arborist's opinion. We're trying to provide some feedback as to how to implement that standard. So I do feel compelled to also identify, without saying, we're not suggesting that the 4 trees are currently a hazard and a negligence standard that would be subject to liability as of tonight.
I just was using it as an example.
Okay, so then another question related to that is Section 131814 talks about appeals. So if we deem a tree to be hazardous and we take the tree out, we reimburse the property owner, and the property owner wants to appeal, how do we put the tree back?
That is going to appeal to your executive, the manager, to hear arguments from both sides.
And that would be before action is taken? I mean, there's going to be dialogue?
That's correct. So far, every incident that has been brought to the city attorney's office, I have been very adamant and argued with the arborists as to what the citizens' rights are. Until this ordinance passed and you give me some direction, I'm leaning towards property rights first. So this would help allow me to validate those safety concerns that have been argued so far with me, and allow us to at least go to the citizen and say, the council has identified these are concerns and safety risks that we wish you to agree with us, and if we can get a consent to do the trimming, these guys do it. If they don't, there'll be a notice also at the same time. We're not going to cut something and say, you know, appeal after the fact. That doesn't work. So there'll be a notice. If they want to appeal, they'll have to act quickly. Failing to do that, then we'll probably continue to say, there was notice, they failed to act, we're taking steps to protect the community.
And if we, this will be my last question, and if we as a city are able to take action, are we just paying to have somebody trim the tree, or does that go to the property owner?
Right now, Brock Hudson's department does have an abatement fund that has sufficient amounts in it that we've actually have on contract, somebody who can come in, cut down literally with 24 hours notice, correct me if I'm wrong, but then the tree is, once it's fell on site, it's reduced to chip and removed from site and put back into use, those chips or grains, whatever you call them. Help me out here if that's
chips.
So we're trying to keep it green in the process of even taking the tree. That doesn't mean that if somebody decides that even after the taking, I don't want to leave any illusions that property owners may decide a week after the fact that that lost conifer was something of value. We're going to have to sometimes occasionally defend ourselves.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember McConaughey.
Thank you, Mayor. On second thought, my comments are probably more conversational and opinion rather than questions of staff, so I'll hold that question, or hold those comments until after the public hearing. Thank you.
Councilmember Newton.
Question for the city attorney. If I have no problem if we've got a concern and we go to a private citizen, this is concerning if it was on private property, of going and asking for their consent, explain what the situation is and why we want to do something, and they consent to have that done, that is fine. I have a problem that if we're proposing to do something and the appeal is to the same entity that is proposing doing it, meaning the city. I think if you're going to have an appeal process, it needs to come before some type of judge or some type of third-party entity that's going to make a decision, because otherwise it's going to look like the city's proposing this and the city's also going to judge the appeal. That doesn't work.
The appeal process that you're suggesting for either an ALJ or a judge, if we were going to appeal something to a judge in the district court, they're currently setting matters out 9 months to a year. So it would delay the ability to address that very quickly if we were simply going to push it directly to a district court or even a justice court appeal. The ALJ is probably now 60 days. The thought was by sending it directly to the manager, it would be something that could be addressed within days. His decision can also be appealed.
Okay. You see where I'm coming from, that it looks like there could be appearance of collusion or you know, but if his decision can be appealed, to where?
That would be directly to district court.
So that accomplishes the same thing. Why not just do it? That's the same situation you just expressed.
Well, because we wanted to try to set up an initial, well, this city set up an appeal process years ago, and so we're just trying to implement that. I think what you're concerned about is whether or not the manager can be fair.
Not really.
You don't think he can be fair?
I don't trust government to be completely fair. That, when you come right down to it, that's what I'm concerned about. That's why I would like to see it some other outside entity. Maybe it's a neighboring city. Maybe it's somebody from Utah State University or something like that would.
That would be a different appeal process altogether from the approval of this urban forestry ordinance. So that's something I can certainly sit down with our attorneys and start discussing with the manager and look at if that's what your request is.
It's a concern from my point of view. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I have a question for our attorney as well. If our arborist, well, two questions. If our arborist determines that, like on 70th South, that branches are hanging over our right-of-way and causing damage to vehicles in construction projects or any other reason, do we have the ability currently without this ordinance to trim those without question?
Yes, and we have in fact been out on 70th, excuse me, and tried cutting. I have been also very insistent as we have approached certain property owners about let's not cut those trees until we absolutely have to. I'm thinking of a particular house of worship that I loathe the idea of cutting those trees until absolutely the contractor's forcing us to do that. But we do have currently the ability to do that to allow for free travel and no damage to buses, vehicles, the height. So far we've been very good about not taking out those trees unless we absolutely have to. We've also been working with the contractors, making them aware of their concerns. They've been trying to move cones and lanes of travel as well.
My second question is, wouldn't it be, or could we under our urban forestry, advise the citizens that their trees are a hazardous condition and allow them a certain length of time to complete the remedy, wouldn't that then put once we had advised them that it was a hazardous situation, wouldn't that put them on the liability side of a tree like Ty just described to us?
So you're suggesting maybe something of a notice that they can cure the problem themselves within 10 days once they've consulted with our forester. The ordinance does not reflect that. It's not a bad idea, but they'd have to have buy-off from our forester to verify that it's been taken care of to his satisfaction. Right now, that there's nothing like that in the ordinance. We could add it. We could certainly look at how to make something available to the citizen that they take care of themselves within a time period that is reasonable. I don't know what that would be. I'd defer to all you to tell us, is it 5 days, is it 7, is it 10?
I'm just concerned about our employees going on private property and removing anything. I think that leaves us subject to lawsuit. Our professionals issuing a letter that a tree is a hazardous situation, specifically hazardous, whether it be these infections that can happen and cause it go citywide or a safety issue, I believe that we probably need to, one more step in the ordinance. I'm glad to know that we can cut the trees within the right-of-way without any question, but to actually go on private property, there's one more segment I'd like to see in the document. That would be my opinion. Again,
we can certainly work on making those changes to reflect the mayor's request. I will defer to, I'd like some, I suppose, feedback on what a time period. Is it 48 hours? Is it 5 days? I don't know.
Well, if it's a safety hazard, I believe 48 hours is enough, because I would err on the side of no one being injured within our city limits. That would be my opinion. Again, property rights are pretty sovereign in the state of Utah still. So I'm concerned about us getting, not that I don't want to deal with these issues, I just think that entering private property, so.
What if it was a tree, if it's a safety issue, 48 hours, if it was a tree that had beetles and was infecting other neighborhood trees or was hazardous, what would an appropriate amount of time in that instance be?
I don't think I'm in the forum that I'd like to give my opinion. I think I need to have more, and the entire council needs to weigh in on this as well. I'm just asking the questions because I'm concerned if we pass an ordinance like this, it puts Ty and Brian in a precarious position to enter private property without some kind of due process. Other questions for, Councilmember Anderson.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't know that this one is ready. I just have some concerns. And I don't know if we move it to a later meeting to discuss and work through some of those things. I worry about the appeal process, which Councilmember Newton brought up. I worry about what our employees do on private property. To me, it's in my mind what I'm picturing is if I let my grass grow too tall and it becomes a fire hazard to my neighbor, that I can have Parks Department come and trim it down so that I'm not in violation. And it concerns me that we're going down this road. So I don't know if there's a way to fix the appeal issue. I don't know if there's a way to deal with our employees going on private property. And to me, if it's a hazardous, it sounds like we can already take care of it if it's in the right of way. And if it's diseased, I think there should be just a mechanism where you can notice by an arborist that you have infestation in your tree and you have X number of days to take care of it, contact your local.
In the case of the gypsy moth in Orem, that required a 1 mile radius quarantine. And they had to go in And I don't know all the details of what they did, but they had to stop that infestation. If we get emerald ash borer, probably, I don't know exactly the percentage of our inventory, but it's probably a hefty number to the amount of like 40% of our 13,000 trees. And so, and that's just the city-owned trees. That's not the urban forest of everyone else who has several ash trees in their yard. And so we're talking a substantial amount of investment. And if it's, I don't know.
But if we notice a resident or a homeowner or property owner of an infestation on a tree, just like we do with weeds or any other thing, you have so many days to take care of it, let that be on them. Wouldn't that be better?
I don't believe that's sufficient. I can't quite picture that to say, well, your house is on fire, here's your piece of paper. You're on your own. Fix it.
I had a tree with fire blight that I had to remove. And it wasn't the government that told me to move it. I did it on my own because I had no tree. It was just branches. And I don't know. I don't know that I'm ready on this one yet. That's all I have. Thank you, Mayor.
City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Staff would recommend that we would table it now and take some of your concerns and look at the different ways of notification, because clearly an emergency means something more than just an infestation that we have to look at a lot of property owners and how it affects them. So let us bring it back again when we have those questions. And if you have other concerns, let me know those, and we'll incorporate those in the next version.
Thank you. I'd like to, if anyone here during the public, I'd like to open the public hearing, and we'll continue the public hearing as well, just in case somebody comes to speak on this and wouldn't have an opportunity in the future. I will now open the public hearing for item 6G. If you're here to speak on this item, now would be the opportunity. Please.
Alexandra Ephraimov, 3735 Judd Circle. I have a neighbor, there are a couple questions I have, that if there's a tree right opposite my street, right on the other side of it. I live in a cul-de-sac, and the tree is so big that about a fourth of the tree, the limbs are laying on the roof. Now, that could be a fire hazard. So, I mean, if they're laying on the roof, I'm not sure about the code ordinance, whether or not they're supposed to go ahead and correct that. I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with the code. But the other one, right at the end of our cul-de-sac, is a beautiful pine tree. And it's vertical, but it's situated in a place that when I try to come out of my cul-de-sac, I cannot see if any cars are coming south. I mean, so being a hazard, I'd have to have an arborist come and really look at it. But, I mean, I hate to, but can we tell an owner to trim the tree, not necessarily cut it down, but would we be able, in this code, to have them trim the tree? So I do have a problem with that, but who's going to pay if the arborist comes and takes down a tree? Who's going to pay for it? Is the owner going to have to pay for cutting down a tree? Or you said we do have funding for that, right? Okay. But anyway, I'm not clear on the ordinance, but I am concerned about that beautiful pine tree. But the way it's growing, it's so gorgeous, but I can't see if any traffic is coming down. So I'm going to, one of these days, going to have a bad accident there. We're just a small cul-de-sac, so there aren't that many cars going out into Judd Lane. But nevertheless, it scares me every time because I have to creep out and just creep and see if there's a car coming, then I move. So, thank you.
Anyone else, please?
Steve Jones, 3234 West, 6920 South, West Vernier. I agree, this ordinance is not ready to be put out to the public. In some ways, I got so many problems on so many different levels that it just drives me nuts. I don't like anything that's left to one individual. Whatever this ordinance needs to be, and it may already be there in place, but it needs to have an appeal process that can meet within limitations and can be taken care of. I know of several instances where trees have been trimmed, and even with the owner standing there and agreed upon point that it's being trimmed, ends up being trimmed more than what was required in the conversation. So I struggle with, as an individual and a property owner here in West Jordan, I planted trees. I've spent 35 years growing them things. And to have one individual come in, and I'm not judging his character, his education, or whatever, but I want to make sure that I have a way to appeal if I don't agree with them. Now, it may ultimately come down as, yeah, I'm wrong, and I'm okay with that. But I don't want one individual to have control over what I've spent 35 years doing. When we talk about court, taking them to the court, inevitably when some of these things end up going to court, guess who gets to pay the bill? I do. In order to go to the judge, I got to pay for it. In these kind of things, I shouldn't have to pay to go to court to find out that something that's my right as a property owner, to protect myself. I mean, that's just, to me, that's ridiculous. There needs to be, like was said, either something from the university or something that is, that we can get even a doctor has a second opinion, when we go to them. So, on infections, if you've got a certain kind of tree that's got an infection, guess what? We shouldn't be selling it to the people in this, in the community. Nothing that really grinds me more than to have a business selling you something and have the next guy come in and say, that was the wrong tree to put there. It's susceptible to a moth or something, and I'm going to whack it down, especially after you spent 15 years growing it. So if we have those kind of trees that are not suited for our community, then they ought to be banned from the nurseries so that unwilling or unknowing citizens who don't have all that education don't end up purchasing something because it looks beautiful. It just, to me, this thing needs to be thought through a whole lot better, specifically to make sure that there is a proper way of everybody coming to a reasonable agreement. This is not talking about trees that are dead and obvious. This is talking about to the person that might.
Thank you. I move to, please.
David Murphy, 9476 South Overley Court, South Jordan. I am speaking to this issue as one of the premier planters of trees in this town, and also as one of the premier taker down of trees and slayer of trees in this town with road projects. I'm just speaking in behalf of some of the facts that need to be put on the table as well here. Rocky Mountain Power, for example, when we have high voltage power lines in town here, they take the trees down to the ground because of the fire hazard. On distribution power, they trim the trees, and you can see the nice arc that they leave that is the arc distance around they have to have for the wires. Moreover, we have a planting variety of trees that we publish to the public every year. We update that list, and we keep in contact with the public on most of these issues. We have to pay for trees that we take down that are in the public right-of-way. We have to pay the public for those trees. Some of the issues that we're talking about here do have the problems that you have spoken of, and those need to be resolved as far as the appeals process. But the hazards are real out there, and in the sight distance triangles along the roadways, we need to address these problems. What's going on along your school walking routes, we need to address those problems. I can speak to a host of tree issues. I've been around trees my entire life. I come from California. You could actually call me a tree hugger in some respects, okay? I've been through the redwoods. I've been through the forests in Florida. It's a beautiful country. Trees make them so. We are a tree city. But we have some hazards out there, and our urban forester needs some help. This ordinance needs to provide that help, and that's all I'll say. Thank you.
Please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. Max Johnson, 3454 West, 7580 South. I definitely support the last comment that this gentleman made regarding hazards. I have a few thoughts. I guess I was kind of under the assumption that we had a code enforcement process that managed a lot of this. I believe that the ordinance, as some of the other communities mentioned, definitely needs some more vetting, some more research. Curious how the issues resonate. These trees take a long time to grow. If they're not in residences, then of course they need site plan approvals to make sure they're not planted within a concerned Clearview area or site triangle area. I also, that's why the main thing there was under complaint. I also have a concern with removing the trees without the owner's permission. That's a major concern. I think it shows a perception of government and being involved without giving the owner an opportunity to express themselves and to help mitigate the situation. I'm not used to the timer. Thank you. Let's see. So I think when there's an issue, we need to involve the owner. Maybe they have problems. Maybe they have health issues that concern them being able to remove the tree themselves. Maybe they don't know it's diseased. There's lots of opportunities there. I'm on both sides of the fence here. I support an owner's right to have trees. I support the public safety of maintaining a clear view in all the streets. Regarding options for appeals, there could be an independent land use hearing officer that you have on retainer that you only use in these kinds of extenuating circumstances. Paying on a case-by-case basis for contract wouldn't be so onerous. I also think working with the owners, consulting with the owners, having the arborist meet the owner and discuss issues on site, there's going to be lots of things that can be accomplished, whether that's trimming the trees, replacing the trees, removing the trees, helping the owner in any way possible, as opposed to simply removing the trees. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I move to continue the public hearing and the item 6G until a date when the staff has had an opportunity to look at all the options that were described tonight and bring it back for a future council meeting.
Second.
A motion by Mayor Rolfe, a second by Councilmember Newton. Discussion to the motion. Councilmember McConaughey.
Thank you, Mayor. I would be opposed. I'm still hoping to share my opinion on this one. I have some very, very strong opinions on this. We went through the question session, and most council chimed in with their opinions at that point. I'd still like to share mine, so I would be opposed to tabling it at this point. Thank you.
Sorry. Let's vote.
Mayor Rolfe,
Yes.
Councilmember Newton,
Yes.
Councilmember Anderson,
Yes.
Councilmember Nichols, Councilmember Nichols,
Can you hear us?
No.
Councilmember McConaughey,
No.
Councilmember Burton,
No.
Councilmember Jacob.
No.
The vote fails 3-4.
Councilmember McConaughey.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm probably, well, we haven't heard from Councilmember Nichols yet, but I may be the only voice of dissent. Personally, I very much support what was proposed by staff. I know there are some concerns that were raised, but as I read through this, it seems like many of those concerns were answered. I'm looking at the electronic version on page 20. If you have the paper version, this is section 13-18-12. I'm looking at paragraph C, where it's talking about what's required to be defined as a nuisance. And it's got three things that are possible. Number one, it's host to destructive or communicable disease. Two, it's causing issues with the public street or the sidewalk. Or number three, it's an imminent danger to property health or well-being of general public on city property. So to me, that seems like a very refined, narrow view which is being taken. If somebody has a tree in their front yard that is not an imminent threat to somebody on the sidewalk, then we're not going to be touching it. It seems to me like that is a very narrow view of what we're looking at. Number two, where we talk about remedies, if we go from section C down to section D, section E, if it's declared a nuisance, then section E comes into play. Code enforcement's authorized to issue a warning at any private property where the public nuisance exists. If the nuisance is not abated by the owner within a reasonable time as determined by the urban forester, then the urban forester may go through the code enforcement process that's out there right now. This is the same process that staff has the authority to remedy issues such as, let's say somebody is storing hazardous materials, such as an excessive amount of paint in their garage that is a hazard to their home and their neighbors. If they don't come into compliance, then the city, through code enforcement, does have the ability to go through and abate that. We're doing the same thing here, where we're pointing to code enforcement, saying let's use the code enforcement process that exists to take care of that issue there. It doesn't seem like there's anything outlandish or any extraordinary amount of authority or power given. It seems like it's very refined and also appropriate. When we talk about property owner, or the rights of the property owner, I have 19 trees on my property of 5 different varieties. If my next door neighbor does something that induces some sort of disease, communicable disease, that is thereby going to affect the trees in my yard, I'm going to lose property value because I have no way of remedying what they're causing to occur on their property. With code enforcement, if my neighbor is doing something that's a nuisance right now, if they have weeds that are over 12 inches tall that are going to seed, that are coming over into my yard, I can call code enforcement, and code enforcement can go work with them to take care of the issue. So my yard doesn't have as much of a possibility of being degraded as much. But right now, with the trees, that's not an issue. As we heard about the moth issue, I'm completely susceptible, and there's nothing to protect my property rights for what I put out or for what I've done. I really don't see anything in this that I would change. I really think that section on page 20 where it talks about the dangerous or hazard conditions has drawn a very limited, narrow scope, and it's within the bounds of what we see with other types of hazard that may require city intervention. We don't intervene on a regular basis, but sometimes it is necessary, but that's very, very rare. You'll see if you go to section or paragraph E. So we've talked about section C, which talks about what conditions are required to be met to be deemed a public nuisance. Halfway through E, the city shall also have authority to condemn or remove any tree that is deemed to be a nuisance. So we do have the authority, but I would assume that we would have to go through the same condemnation process to do that as we would through other code enforcement issues that are deemed to be an issue. So I don't necessarily see us as putting one person in charge of making every decision with impunity. It still seems to me that it's going back to the code enforcement process. And that being said, I would make the motion that we approve ordinance 17-35.
The motion will die for lack of a second. Councilmember Jacob.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't disagree with much of what you said, Councilmember McConaughey. It's very close. I think the ordinance is close. I think there's just a couple of things that need to be tweaked on it, and we may be able to do that right here by discussing it. One, you were reading from paragraph E, and if the nuisance is not abated by the property owner within a reasonable time as determined by the urban forester, period, is not a sentence, it's a phrase, and that would need to be, we would need to make some kind of fix there. It's just probably a typo, but for example, I think if that section, paragraph E, stopped with the urban forester may pursue legal action through the city code enforcement process, period, I think it's good. The second two lines, there's the last two sentences there, give me a little more pause as far as the city also shall have, which seems to indicate to me that they may go through the code enforcement, or they also have the authority to condemn the tree and take it out without going through the code enforcement process. If we could rephrase that to something along the lines of, through the code enforcement process, the city may come to the point, I don't know how to phrase this, you get what I'm saying? Come to the point of having the authority to remove the tree after going through the code enforcement process. If that was laid out, I'd be good with that. I'm not so sure I'm good with the property owner being charged for it. I think that's what property taxes are for and everything else. Let it come out of the general, we have departments to deal with things like this. We don't, you know what I mean? Most of the time, a property owner is not intentionally causing a hazard. They're not intentionally killing a tree. They're not intentionally planting a tree where they know it's going to cause traffic accidents. They're not intentionally rooting up sidewalks. So absent a criminal intent or an intent to be naughty, I don't think that you need a financial remedy there. That's just me. And I'm open to disagreement on that one. If I'm outvoted, that's fine. Of course, if I'm outvoted, I'm open to anything. And then that would apply to section F as well. If the city may trim or prune any public tree or any tree planted in violation of this chapter without serving notice upon the owner of the abutting property. I might need that one explained to me. Obviously, the city may trim any public tree. We may already trim trees on public, they're hanging over public property and causing a nuisance, as been stated. So I think what I'm saying overall is this is very close, and I think a couple of little tweaks and we'd be very close. So if anybody's willing to wordsmith with me, we may be able to just get this done. And then again, we may not.
Councilmember Newton.
I don't think this is the proper time to spend that on doing that. I think there's too many things to consider, and due process is one of those things to make sure that we are acting accordingly. And as far as an infestation or something like that, those processes can be sped up in an emergency, and I think that could be appropriate. But I think we really need to consider the whole due process and when it comes to private property. I have no problem with us where trees are in the park strip or along the city roads of doing what we need to there. It's when we get away from those areas that have a significant problem. So I think we ought to go back to the mayor's suggestion and just table it. I will make that a motion to table it. Do we need a specific date since it's a hearing?
It does help just to make it clean so that there's Melanie and I are then bugging you folks to get this dealt with. So that's my request, and it has been in the past. But you do not have to have a date if that's your desire.
Okay, we will I move that we table this until the second meeting in January.
2018, when I will be gone.
Councilmember Nichols, did you have a comment or a second?
I did have a comment, thank you. My opposition to the previous motion was regarding, he hasn't spoken up yet, and I just wanted, before it went back to staff, that each of us have that. But I'm in favor of tabling, but I did want to vocalize my concern with the appeals process. Specifically, I did have a recent issue with a constituent in our code enforcement. And I tried to stay out of it as much as possible because it should just go through the normal process. But I did inquire of staff extensively of making sure that in this and future cases that we're always treating the public fairly. And in this specific case, it had nothing to do with trees. It had to do with parking a trailer in front of the house, but it was a code enforcement issue, and I think we could relate it to this scenario. What ended up happening with this constituent was his first notice was an excessive fine of $1,500 for having a trailer in front of his house. Now the city did make an effort, I believe via mail was what it was, but he swears he never received that first initial letter that he was out of compliance. Obviously, as soon as he received the fine of $1,500, he immediately removed the trailer. But he swears, and I know this guy professionally, he's genuinely an honest man. And he swears that was his first notice. So I share this experience just to make sure that we make the appeals process for a property owner, in this case, we just take a second look at that. I think this would be an opportune time to just take pause. And although we're talking about our trees, it might be a good way to overhaul that process in general. Thank you.
I second Mayor or Councilmember Newton's motion. So we have a motion by Councilmember Newton, a second by Mayor Rolfe. Discussion to the motion. Councilmember McConaughey.
Thank you, Mayor. I would just ask if staff are clear as to what changes are being requested for when this is brought back.
I can take a stab at that if you'd like. It's my understanding you want to address specifically adding a section that addresses safety issues and the ability to cure within at least a minimum of 48 hours, would have a cleanup issue for infestations, that would have a cure period of something between 2 days to 7 days. We'll certainly look at what other cities have implemented. We'll certainly address and perhaps push towards an administrative due process that looks closer to our abatement process, where it goes to an administrative law judge for the purposes of a hearing, where there's the authority to issue subpoenas, have a hearing, require attendance. That process can be implemented and verified. I think that's what the council is asking. Am I missing anything?
I just want to be clear that anything that's within the right-of-way, which is 1 foot behind the sidewalk, can be dealt with today if it's a safety issue without any permission whatsoever. Is that accurate?
That's correct. And we've actually worked with Dave and the forester, and we actually took care of some of those trees because it's my understanding when the construction moved lanes, buses were hitting trees, and we just had to fix that right away. So we did it the next day.
So site distances that are obstructed at intersections that are within the right-of-way can be dealt with immediately.
Correct. And we've tried to approach and let the property owner know that this is a safety issue, and we've had damage, and so we're documenting and verifying that. So if challenged, we can at least provide verification of those instances where damage has occurred.
Thank you. Councilmember McConaughey.
Thank you, Mayor. And then to follow up, I could possibly be in support of this if the motion were changed just slightly to say no later than the second meeting of January.
I'll accept that.
I'll accept that as the second as well. Let's vote.
Okay. Councilmember Jacob.
Yes.
Councilmember McConaughey.
Aye.
Councilmember Burton.
Yes.
Councilmember Anderson.
Yes.
Councilmember Newton.
Yes, and I'll be gone that day.
Chicken. Councilmember Nichols.
Yes.
Mayor Roth.
Yes.
Vote passes 7 in favor.
I move to take a 5-minute recess.
Second.
Fifth.
Motion is second. All in favor? Aye. 5 minutes only. We still got a long night.
Well, the Miracle Grow will take care of it.
Please, stay away.
You want to start with a motion to move beyond 9?
Just as well. Councilmember Newton.
Mayor, I would suggest we make a motion, well, I will make a motion that we move beyond 9 o'clock because we're not going to finish this before then.
Actually, I forgot, we suspended the rules at the beginning of the meeting,
so
so we don't
okay.
need to make that motion. I apologize. Okay. We are moving item 7F up to the next item. This is an important issue to get resolved tonight in case we don't get done with everything. So item 7F, discussion and possible action regarding Resolution 17-129, authorizing the issuance and sale of not more than 15 million aggregate principal amount of water revenue bonds of the City of West Jordan and related matters. Bill?
Thanks, Mayor. Tonight we have a parameters resolution that was prepared by our Bonds Council, Farnsworth Johnson, PLLC, authorizing the issuance and sale of up to $15,150,000 total, and that is broken out into $10,150,000 in Series 2017A and not more than $5 million in Series 2017B of water revenue bonds. It needs to be approved so we can begin the bonding process. These bonds were issued so the city can, there are actually two parts of this transaction. The $10,150,000 portion is for the city to be able to construct 2 water storage tanks and purchase property for a third storage tank. And the City Council, along with the staff, to discuss the possibility of issuing bonds to help alleviate the peaking issues in the water system. And the second portion of that, if it is financially beneficial to the city, is to refund the 2013 water revenue bonds. And these are planned to be paid from proceeds from water revenue over the next 10 years. We also have Dave Zobel here that can answer specifics related to these bonds if council has that need.
We've talked about this a lot. Any questions from council? Councilmember Jacob.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just looking at the staff report. There was a public hearing on this item in 2013. Is that right? Since the end of the request for council action discussion, says the public hearing is scheduled for October 23rd, 2013.
There should be a new staff report that was uploaded unless you saved yours prior to that.
I just clicked the link a second ago, but I'll refresh
Oh,
it.
yeah, because they redid it to say that the public hearing would be held on July 26th of 2017.
You can see why I was confused.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
That's
Yeah.
okay. Thank you. Amazing what a little refresh.
I move to approve Resolution 17-129.
Second.
We have a motion by Mayor Rolfe and a second by Councilmember McConaughey. Discussion of the motion? Seeing none, let's vote.
Sorry, I got a little more crap. Councilmember Jacob.
Yes.
Councilmember McConaughey.
Aye.
Councilmember Burton.
Yes.
Councilmember Anderson.
Yes.
Councilmember Newton.
Yes.
Councilmember Nichols.
Yes.
Mayor Rolfe.
Yes.
The vote passes 7 in favor.
Business item 7A, update from the Sustainability Committee. Steve Glane.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Back in March, the Citizen Sustainability Committee gave a brief presentation, and Council requested that they return in 3 months to give another report on some research the committee's been doing, and to ask for a little bit more direction regarding some specific projects that we are willing to work on, of course, with your direction. So one of the representatives of that committee is here today, Eric Plath. Will give a brief presentation and ask for some additional direction from Council. Eric? Eric had to step out, so we have a substitute today. Michael Toronto will be our representative.
If y'all remember me, I'm back for more. Sorry if I'm going to be reading off this. I don't usually like to just read from a document. So, as Steve said, we were instructed last time to come back and report on some of our research and our findings and on some proposed projects and narrow our list down. And we have come with 5 proposed projects that we would like your guidance on and direction. But first, to give you a brief on our summary of meetings. In March, we discussed various projects to pursue, including solid waste and water conservation education programs, reviewing city ordinances and planning for sustainability improvements, review development standards related to conservation and energy efficiency, and help West Jordan improve their water conservation and development and building ordinances. In May, we had a conversation about HOA bylaws, a discussion around HOA bylaws being restrictive as to the type of landscaping you can put in. We invited people from the West Jordan Conservancy District to educate us on localscapes. We invited our planning group to come and talk about ordinances that deal with HOAs and deal with landscapes and such, and found that there are no restrictions for HOAs and the bylaws they can produce that tend to restrict residents and the different landscapes they could put in that could be more water conservation oriented. We also reviewed the West Jordan tree list to determine if improvements can be made to this list. For instance, trees that are more hardy against the wind, or in the wintertime against the salt, trees that would provide more shade and would be bigger than the ones currently allowed on the tree list. In June, we met with Dave Naylor of the Parks Department to discuss various challenges they face in the Parks Department to be able to handle the demand of a growing city such as West Jordan. So for projects, number 1 is HOA landscaping. We propose to work on a project to create an ordinance and bring it to the City Council to adopt, which restricts HOAs from creating bylaws that in turn restrict residents from the types of landscapes they can use. For instance, some HOAs keep you from having less than a certain percentage of grass, which makes it hard to put in a good and viable local scape or even a decent xeriscape. The Water Conservancy District is looking at a similar ordinance. Their ordinance would promote the use of local scapes in current and new departments, so we've looked at maybe partnering with them. This project would help reduce water usage and increase the beautification of West Jordan, which we know is a goal of the city leadership. The street tree list, the committee would like to undertake a project researching better trees for the approved street curb tree list. The committee would work with the Parks Department to choose the best trees. We are interested in getting more shade trees on the list, to have the beautiful canopies that you find in older Salt Lake, like up in Sugar House, and you drive down those roads and they're just covering everything. The lawns are shaded, which also reduces the need for the amount of watering that a lot of people in West Jordan have to do because their lawns aren't shaded as much as they could. Many of the trees along the streets are dying and can't hold up against the salt during the winter or the strong winds that prevail, as mentioned earlier. Another project around city ordinances, review and suggest language to improve water conservation and energy conservation for new developments, existing buildings, and green spaces. We reviewed ordinances with the planning committee, the planning department here, and some of those ordinances they already have in place. As part of the project, we work closely with the correct city departments and partner with other city committees to help review ordinances and draft language changes. Education programs, research and prepare proposed education programs for water conservation and solid waste. As part of this project, we would determine the costs of rolling out these programs. Number 5, park/urban forestry funding. Research changes that can help the Parks Department meet the city's beautification standards. Part of our proposal to the City Council would include budget changes, ordinance changes, and staffing changes. When we met with them, those are some of the primary things that they brought up that are restrictive to them in carrying out their responsibilities. So given these project options, we would like to ask the council's direction on which one or ones you would like us to pursue, given your strategic objectives and whatever you would use to determine that. If tonight isn't the appropriate night to do that, for time's sakes, we would like to ask for some direction by the end of July so that we can get working and give it our all and bring something back that is beneficial for you and beneficial for the city. Thank you.
Councilmember Jacob.
Thank you, Mayor. As a former member of this committee and former chair of this committee, I would like to direct the committee to prioritize these projects. I have no problem with any of them. Prioritize these projects as they see fit and bring them back to the council. That would be my suggestion for direction.
For us to prioritize them?
Yeah.
Okay.
Councilmember Anderson.
Thank you, Mayor. Also, as a former member and former chair of this committee, one thing when I was chairing the committee, and I'm glad to, it's not on this list, but that's okay because I think some of this landscaping is the next step forward. But just data that may be beneficial is in calendar year 16, so January to December 2016, City of West Jordan consumed 20,321 acre-feet of water. And if you calculate that out, it's 6.6 billion gallons of water. And so I was great to hear that, and it's going to take a long time. It's not going to happen probably the next 10 years, maybe hopefully sooner. But I would like us to get to a point where the smartscaping, the xeriscaping, those kind of things become natural, and we want to do that kind of stuff. We are in the second driest state, and that's just our city. So how many other billions of gallons are being used elsewhere in Salt Lake County? And there isn't any more water. So we've got to start thinking, the shade like you talked about with larger trees to provide shade so we don't have as much evaporation, what we do with the curb strip so that we're not making a microclimate. So that's just some data you could probably run with the 6.6 billion gallons of water in a calendar year. Thank you. That's all I have, Mayor.
Councilmember McConaughey.
Thank you, Mayor. As I'm looking at the list, personally, the one that sticks out to me, the one that sticks out to me the most is number 4, education programs. A lot of what we do as a council revolves around education. When we were talking about trees earlier and in a broader perspective, code enforcement, a lot of that is education, helping people understand what needs to be done, why, and helping get that message out. We've had, I can't even guess how many hours we've spent discussing water rates over the last 5.5 years that I've been on the council, and need for conservation, talking about recycling and some of the things that just generally are not known out there. I really think education is a big place to focus. Again, jumping back to code enforcement, our goal with code enforcement, as Councilmember Nichols mentioned, the neighbor that had what appeared to be an excessive fine, I'm guessing once remedied, that fine probably was taken care of. But typically the direction that we give code enforcement is that we're looking to correct the behavior. We don't really care so much about the monetary penalty. We really want that education, and we want to change the behavior. And going with number 4, the education programs, I think you can hit on a lot of the other things that that you're looking at. Number 1, number 2, and number 1 and number 2 specifically would, I think, also roll up underneath number 4. So personally, I would say, if it were up to me, I would recommend that as the highest priority, because that's the most broad, and I think that one's the one that's going to have the most direct effect on the city. So that would be my thought. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Councilmember Newton.
And I agree with that, Councilmember McConaughey. I was going to say the same thing. This would be the perfect avenue to inform the public about tree infestations and potential problems and how to deal with it, and what the city could do to help them understand, so that we don't have a catastrophe down the road. I think that's a perfect opportunity for that.
Did I give you enough direction to work towards?
It narrows it a little bit, yes. We appreciate that. The council last time did say they would like to hear from us quarterly. So I would assume in our next report, our next quarterly report, probably sometime August, September, that we would have an update and a project that we have pursued and started down at that point.
Sounds great. Oh, Councilmember McConaughey.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, personally, if it were up to me, I would love to see in that next quarterly report, here's the list of different things that we'd like to do. Here's the list of city resources that we're requesting, whether that's to work through public information or whether that's needing assistance from other departments. Let us know what city resources you need, so if we need to formally say, yes, go for it, and give formal direction from council to put those resources in your hands, that's what I would love to see at that next presentation. Thank you.
Will do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 7B, reconsideration. First, we have to have a motion to reconsider this item before we can even move forward. Councilmember Burton.
Mayor, my desire on this is just to do the reconsideration today and reconsider it on another date when the property owner or possible property owner will be in attendance. He was unable to be here today. So I would just like to move to reconsider ordinance 1-34, removing zoning condition number 3 and number 8, CG, ZC, for property located at 9035 South, 1300 West, Galvanize LCC, John Stevens, applicant, to be scheduled for July 12th, 2007 as a public hearing.
I'll second that.
We have a motion by Councilmember Burton, a second by Councilmember Newton. Discussion to the motion. Councilmember McConaughey.
Thank you, Mayor. So to clarify, you're wanting to reconsider, but also make that reconsideration another public hearing.
That would be correct. So we could continue it from last time. I received some additional information since our last meeting that I would like to have presented to help us make a more educated decision and perhaps reconsider.
I believe I would be in favor of that motion. I was going to speak against the reconsideration because I know there was particularly the property manager who came and spoke in opposition, and if we were going to do something without giving him the opportunity or the other adjoining property owners. So although I'm in opposition to the reconsideration, because this is going the noticed public hearing route again, I will be in support.
And just for your information, I did meet with that other property owner before this. Yes, I went with Wayne Niederhauser and told him that this would be coming, and I would propose to have the public hearing in 2 weeks, and he is planning on being here in attendance in 2 weeks.
Let's vote.
Oh, my my gosh, I'm sorry. I'm going, okay, who's speaking? Oh, I'm tired. Sorry, guys. Okay. Councilmember McConaughey.
I didn't catch the date when that was originally suggested, and I'm not slated to be here on July 12th, so I will vote no. Sorry.
No, he made a motion to reconsider to hear a public hearing on July 12th.
Don't we have to open it back up before we can table it? Another part of the motion, we have to pull it back out of the file before we can decide what to do with it.
He's saying let's pull it out of the file, but put it on the table for July 12th.
Right. David?
There should be a motion for reconsideration following that motion to then modification to the law. Change. Does that make sense?
Microphone.
Sorry. So the motion for reconsideration first, then followed by whatever terms and conditions, if it's approved for reconsideration, then would be added. So at this point, you're asking for reconsideration first, and then you'll be discussing your date.
Would you like to restate your?
Yes. In that case, I want to change my motion as a reconsideration only for ordinance 1-34.
Second that.
We have a motion by Councilmember Burton, a second by Councilmember Newton. Discussion to the motion. Now let's vote.
Okay, and I'm not asleep yet. Councilmember Burton?
Yes.
Mayor Roth?
Yes.
Councilmember Jacob?
Yes.
Councilmember McConaughey?
Aye.
Councilmember Newton?
Aye.
Councilmember Nichols?
Yes.
Councilmember Anderson?
Yes.
Bill passes 7 in favor.
Councilmember Burton.
Okay, now I move to schedule the reconsideration hearing for July 12th, 2017. And I realize now that you may not be here on that day, but in speaking with the owner and the Dairy Green owners, that schedule worked with them. It may be possible to move it back to 2 weeks later, but I would like to check with them before I make that change. I didn't need to make that long of a motion. Let me shorten that. I move to schedule the reconsideration for July 12th, 2017 as a public hearing.
And I would second that with the caveat that I will also not be here on the 12th.
So did you second? Okay, so we have a motion by Councilmember Burton, a second by Councilmember Newton. Discussion to the motion. Councilmember McConaughey.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, procedural question then. Do we have to put a date with that right now, or can we approve the reconsideration and let Councilmember Burton work with the parties to determine what date, since we all seemed in favor of the reconsideration, so that we're not necessarily naming a date right now? And
Councilmember Burton could amend his motion if you would choose.
I move to amend my motion to remove the date to a date to be determined after I meet with the parties involved. No later than the second meeting of August. No later than the second meeting of August.
I will second that.
So we have a motion, revised motion by Councilmember Burton and a second by Councilmember Newton. Discussion to the motion. Let's vote.
Okay, I'm going to make a quick clarification for everyone. The second meeting in August, because of the election on August 15th, when I first received the information from the county, we were to canvass the election on August 22nd, which would be anyway. They have told me now that we need to do it 2 weeks after, which is August 29th. So that will be our second meeting in August. It's Tuesday, August 29th, and not August 30th. Well, It would have been the 23rd. So that's the date it will be heard then, no later than. Okay? Councilmember Nichols.
Yes.
Councilmember Anderson.
Yes.
Councilmember Jacob.
Yes.
Councilmember Newton.
Yes.
Councilmember McConaughey.
Sure.
Mayor Rolfe.
Yes.
Councilmember Burton.
Yes.
The vote passes 7 in favor.
Yes. Mayor, may I?
Yes.
So I want to clarify that the 29th is the city council meeting,
Yes.
not the 22nd.
Yes.
Thank you.
I apologize. During election years, they kind of, yeah.
Business item 7C, discussion and possible action regarding Resolution 17-127, authorizing the mayor to execute a change order over 10% for Knife River for the restoration of 7,000 South, Phase 2A, 1750 West to 1950 West, and 2B, 1050 West to 3200 West, with Phase 2B being over 2% in an amount not over 10%, in an amount not to exceed $1,939,267.47. Wendell.
Thank you, Mayor. David Murphy will make this presentation.
Mayor and Council, thank you for the opportunity to speak to this item. Right now on 70th South, we have a project going on with Knife River. Everyone's well aware of some of the subsidence in some of the roadway sections that we've encountered along the shoulders. That is due to traffic being put on a shoulder that was under-designed. Basically, it's about a 3/8 design instead of a truck design, which was needed to hold up to the traffic that's been placed on it. So under the original design work, which is this graphic here, and the audience can see it a little bit better than you can, what was intended was trench replacement and then a mill and overlay over the rest of the road using a Fortify fiber. That is going to be insufficient to heal the breaches that are in the road. And we've had additional roadway subsidence that we're investigating too, that may come into play on this amount later on. If you could go to the second graphic. The change order includes complete removal and replacement of the asphalt surface down to 18 inches. And what that means is this would be a cut and cover operation after the trench work is done at this point. And they're already started with some of this, but that is just under work directive without this full change order authorization, so we still need the full change order authorization to complete the rest of the road. That will push us over 10%. That's why this item is before you. According to the staff report that you've seen, there's 2 projects that this suspends for a time until next year. However, on one of those projects, we still do not have the permit out of Omaha on the railroad crossing at 70th. So that project is probably not even going to get to a bid this year because of time frame now. We wouldn't be able to pave the job out there on 70th out by Airport Road for the railroad crossing anyway, so we're probably going to suspend that job until next spring anyway. So there is a time lag here that's in favor of that portion of the work. The other job that gets suspended for this year is a overlay of 48th West. And that road, although it's in poor shape, it's not as in poor of shape as this road will be. So this road really is going to carry more traffic than 48th West does. And so we will take care of potholes as they occur this coming season on 48th West as we normally do. But this road needs the treatment more than the other 2. Questions?
Councilmember Newton.
David, how much more is this than the original bid?
The original bid contained $1 million worth of asphalt work. This new work is nearly $3 million worth of work, so the change is $1.9 million.
That is the change.
Yes.
Thank you.
Just to clarify too, we've spent about 3 weeks in the back room doing a lot of arm twisting with the contractor to get to this price.
And Councilmember Newton, myself, City Manager, and David Murphy had met discussing where we originally were, and this is scaled back considerably from what the pricing was originally. So I'm in support of doing this. Councilmember Jacob.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick question. How unforeseeable was this need? I mean, did we not know that we would need this when the project originally went out to bid?
How unforeseeable? That is a great question. We knew that we had mismatched pavement throughout the job area. We were concerned about it. We did take test holes in certain locations. It did show that we had some pavement issues that were fine in the middle of the street. We did not take core samples on the sides, but we did expect the sides to underperform. Just based on history on other roads like 27th West that had been built in the center beforehand and then widened to the sides, we were unsure of what that widening entailed, and we weren't expecting it to completely fail the way it has. We were expecting it to hold up better than it did, and it hasn't. Just hasn't.
Thanks. Councilmember McConaughey.
Thank you, Mayor. My 2-year-old and 4-year-old currently seem to love the road as it is, and I'm sure they would be in opposition to changing it. They love the bumps and bouncing around. Me, on the other hand, I'm not so much in favor of remaining with what we have. I really don't see any other options, so I would move to approve resolution number 17-127.
I would second that, and I want to thank those who helped negotiate the price to be better for the work you did. Thank you.
We have a motion by Councilmember McConaughey, a second by Councilmember Burton. Discussion of the motion. Councilmember Jacob.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm not in opposition to the motion. I think it needs to be done. I would just like to see due diligence done better in advance so that we know this at the beginning of the project and not be forced to deal with it toward the end of the project. So just a personal preference note, but I am in favor of the motion because it needs to be done.
Let's vote.
Councilmember Anderson?
Yep.
Councilmember Jacob?
Yep.
Mayor Rolfe?
Yes.
Councilmember Nichols?
Yes.
Councilmember Burton?
Yes.
Councilmember Newton?
Yes.
Councilmember McConaughey?
Aye.
The vote passes 7 in favor.
Business item 7D, discussion and possible action regarding ordinance 17-36, amending Title IV, Business and License Regulations, bringing city code into compliance with state law. David Bricky.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council. This past legislative session, there were several changes made to allow individuals who work in their homes to be able to do so without requiring the cities to go through the licensing process for their home businesses. There is a way to adjust after the business is awarded or recognized as this home business. If they have impact, the neighbors can keep track of traffic flow and how much actual impact is occurring in that neighborhood. But this ordinance change basically brings us in compliance with state code. There will be a loss of revenue of something close to $20,000 is what we're estimating. But that would at least bring us into compliance with the state goals.
Councilmember Jacob.
Thank you, Mayor. Just for clarification, the state law that was passed doesn't not require them to have a business license. It just prohibits us from charging them a business license fee for that business license. Is that correct? Just want to make sure we're not blanketedly allowing unlicensed businesses to have free reign. So, thanks.
Councilmember McConaughey.
Thank you, Mayor. I have nothing opposed to being compliant with state law, so I will move to approve ordinance 17-36.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember McConaughey, a second by Councilmember Burton. Discussion to the motion. I will just state I will support the motion because it is state law, although I believe that many of these businesses cause far more calls to the city with complaints than the much larger businesses that pay much more in license fee. I stated that on the Hill to as many legislators that would listen, but it still passed. So, but I will support the motion because it is state law. Let's vote.
Councilmember Newton.
Aye.
Councilmember Anderson.
Yes.
Councilmember McConaughey.
Aye.
Councilmember Jacob.
Yes.
Councilmember Nichols.
Yes.
Mayor Rolfe.
Yes.
Councilmember Burton.
Yes.
Vote passes 7 in favor.
Business item 7E, discussion and possible action regarding resolution 17-128, authorizing the mayor to execute a professional services agreement with Bowen Collins and Associates, Inc. for the Zone 4 New Bingham Highway 4 million gallon water storage reservoir in an amount not to exceed $294,920. Wendell?
Thank you, Mayor. This is a master plan reservoir that we've planned for. It was approved as part of the Culinary Water Master Plan, which City Council approved several years ago. In order to enable growth to continue in the Zone 4 area, we need to build this reservoir. It'll be constructed right next to an existing 3 million gallon reservoir along the New Bingham Highway near 6700 West. We've actually begun the property acquisition process, and the contract will provide for design and construction management services of the reservoir. We have followed the standard process approved by the council for procurement of professional services, which includes comparing those proposals that we received in the areas of experience and qualification, understanding of the project schedule and references, and the fee. So staff would recommend that the agreement be approved and awarded to Bowen Collins, and we would be glad to answer any questions you have.
Questions from council? Councilmember Jacob.
Thank you, Mayor. Just as a clarification on this, the staff report says the city is bonding soon for $10 million. I assume that's the bond that we just authorized a minute ago? Okay. Just wanted to make sure there wasn't another $10 million bond coming. So
Oh, I'm sorry.
If this is that bond, then
Yes.
yes, okay.
A motion would be in order. Councilmember Newton.
Move to approve resolution 17-128.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Newton, a second by Councilmember Anderson. Discussion to the motion. Seeing none, let's vote.
Councilmember Nichols.
Yes.
Councilmember McConaughey.
Aye.
Councilmember Burton.
Yes.
Councilmember Newton.
Aye.
Mayor Rolfe.
Yes.
Councilmember Jacob.
Yes.
Councilmember Anderson.
Yes.
The vote passes 7 in favor.
Business item 7G, discussion and possible action regarding benefits for city council members. Councilmember Newton.
This came up as I was looking at the budget, and as I looked at the city council salaries, the total salary package for council members was as high as $42,000 plus change. Now, the base salary is $18,000, which I think is a good salary for the service that we're performing. I believe also that this is a public service, and while we do expend time and effort and monies and traveling and whatnot, I think that the 18,000 is a very good wage for a part-time service. So I think that the benefits that are incurred here, which vary, and I assume that's probably because of the insurance that we are allowed to take, I think is excessive for what we do. We do not provide those benefits for any other part-time employee that I'm aware of. Now, I might be wrong with that, but that, as far as I could tell, that was not the case. So I'd like to have a discussion, and I know and understand that some of you expect and need that. My proposal would be that it wouldn't affect anybody existing on the council, except for anyone who was appointed in April of 2017. And so I would be open for your discussion as to that proposal, that we remove that and that we just get paid however legally we can do it, just the 18,000 as a stipend, or the 1,500 a month. Let me put it, that might be a better way to put it. So I will listen to your comments.
Councilmember Anderson. It's like Jeopardy. And I appreciate Councilmember Newton and his effort on this. And as I do HR at my real job, I threw out, I played with some numbers. There's only two ways that you can receive money from an entity. It doesn't matter if it's private or public. You either are an employee and draw a wage, and part of that wage you have your employee deductions, which would be Social Security and Medicare, which combined to 7.65%, and then the employer also contributes to those funds at 7.65%. And then you have your federal withholding, your state withholding, and then any benefits that come out of it. That's one way to get paid by an entity. The second way to get paid by an entity is a 1099, like a contract employee, where you'd have the $1,500 stipend. The tax implications are that as an independent, not an independent employee, an independent contractor, the contractor is responsible for the employee's portion of taxes as well as the employer's portion of taxes. So it basically doubles that 7.65. So I just did some calculations as it applies to me. And I'm not saying that I don't enjoy the public service. I just, we have, so here's what the numbers are. So there's a $18,000 a year comes to $1,500 a month in gross wages. So as a 1099 contractor, non-employee, so that I could purchase my own benefits, my Social Security, which I would be responsible for both portions, would be $186 a month. Medicare would be $43.50 a month. My federal withholding for my family would be $173 a month, and my state withholding would be $75 a month, leaving a net after tax of $1,040 or $1,022. Then I would go to healthcare.gov to find a healthcare plan. Let's say it wasn't offered at my employer. It could be a business that's less than 15 employees where I'm not mandated to by Obamacare or the Affordable Care Act to have insurance. And just going to healthcare.gov for my family and filling out a healthcare plan. If I choose a silver plan, that is, I have a $300 credit. Silver plans allow you to have subsidized health benefits, and my premium would be $400 a month. If I didn't qualify, so I'm again small business, less than 15 employees, and for my family, and so I couldn't get the subsidized plan, I'd have to go to the gold plan. That would be $800 a month out of the $1,022, which would leave $200. But if we go back to the silver plan, the one that's subsidized, at $400, and dental would be $100 a month. That leaves a net income of $500 a month, divided by about 20 hours a week, would come to $6.25 an hour as an independent contractor. I could double my wages flipping burgers at McDonald's. So those are only two ways that a person can be paid by an entity, is either as an employee or as a 1099. So I'm just presenting those numbers.
Councilmember McConaughey.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate what's been shared. I also like the attempt to try and ensure that we're not necessarily voting on our own compensation by trying to stagger when this would come into play based on the elections. I think that makes it a lot easier for us to make an impartial decision. I still have a hard time voting on my own compensation in really any form. My suggestion, and I apologize to Councilmember Newton because I thought of this after we had discussed this one. My suggestion is I think we should have a separate body that examines all compensation for council that is not us. I think it puts us in an awkward position where we're looking and saying this is what we should be paid. Councilmember Newton mentioned that he felt like what we're at right now is fair. This was a recent change. For an incredibly long time, the compensation for council was about half that, and it probably should have been changed much sooner than that. But you find many council members reluctant to vote on their own salary. So I think it may not really be compensating in the way that it was expected to. My suggestion would be that we have an impartial third party come to the council with recommendations for what council's compensation should be, not just necessarily the benefit portion, but all of it. I would be in favor of them reviewing this immediately, but I would like to hear from them on an annual basis. Just like we review employee salaries on an annual basis, I would like them to review council compensation, if not annually, then every other year. I thought about what group would be the best to do that, if we should appoint a separate entity to do that evaluation. But the thought that I had is this probably falls within reason under the Ethics Commission that's already been established. These are folks that have been appointed by the city manager, not by the council. They consist of a variety of professionals and folks from the community. And I think compensation could reasonably be construed to fall underneath the ethics component of what's expected. So my thought would be that we task the ethics commission with reviewing this on an annual or semi-annual basis, and then I would wholeheartedly support whatever recommendation they come back with. Thank you.
Councilmember Jacob.
Thank you, Mayor. That was interesting, and I don't necessarily disagree. I am very much not in favor of a council or any other elected body voting for its own salary without an amendment or any other compensation, I guess, in this case, without an election taking place in between, as per the 27th Amendment, which only applies to Congress, but I think the principle applies to all elected officials. All I was going to say was I think that we should table this a little bit longer because there are people who have signed up to run for council under the current rules, and if we change it for them, we're changing the rules after they've already applied. So I would propose putting off the effective date one further election for the at-large members of council. That's kind of the only thing I was thinking as to what bothered me the most. At the same time, the other principle that applies, and I wasn't on the council when the salary was voted on, but I'm not saying I'm not grateful. Very much appreciate it. But I think we should make it easier for more people to serve, not more difficult for more people to serve. A lot of the numbers that Councilman Anderson ran down show that, $6.25 an hour, people would rather be flipping burgers at McDonald's, so to speak. So I think making it more attractive or easier for more people to serve, rather than limiting our pool of people who are able to serve, is generally an overriding principle that I would move towards. We did, I mean, the same principles applied to the mayor's salary 4 years ago and change to the council salary. We've done it a lot of different ways. I just like to make it easier for more people to get involved. Thanks.
And I've talked to Councilmember Newton about this. I'm the one that put it on the agenda to discuss raising the council salary from $815 a month to $1,500 a month, and we voted on it and made it at the next municipal election that it went into effect. And I believe you all deserve that. But I also agree that same in form with the part-time employees at the city, the other ones. I'm not sure that the other benefit package on that side is justified where the other employees haven't. But I'm not in a, at this point, I'd like to discuss this further before I'd make a decision on it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And yeah, some further discussion would be great. And I'm not against what Councilmember McConaughey has suggested. Having somebody outside look at it might be a good idea as well. And so, thanks for your consideration. Part of my concern is how it looks to our citizens out here, and the fact that we have some employees that aren't making much more than that $42,000 and working a full-time job here. So I think we need to be very careful of our appearances and who we are and what we're trying to do and how we're trying to serve. So I would recommend that when we have a work meeting or something like that, that we discuss it further.
I just wanted to hear from our city attorney, if we could.
Just to clarify, I've heard now at least 2 council members talk about an outside entity look at it and consider it. There was even a comment about the Ethics Commission. The ordinance that we passed does not allow for this type of consideration. It would have to be somebody else, but we've also suspended the Ethics Commission between now and the end of the year for the election, so we couldn't ask them even to consider something like this at the present time. It may be a stretch, and once you have it constituted, maybe they'd be willing to look at that, but they are, under our own ordinance, suspended until after the general election.
Could we establish a separate committee to look at that?
You do have that ability to describe what it is you want or defer to the manager to construct it for you.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember McConaughey.
Thank you, Mayor. My only other thought was, since we did create the ordinance that created the Ethics Commission, we could also modify it to allow for this as well. So where we've already got well-qualified people, just an idea to throw out there. Obviously, we couldn't do anything right now without changes to some of the ordinances that we have in place, but just an idea of making the best use of some of the committees that we already have.
Okay, final item on the agenda part, business item 7H, discussion and possible action regarding Resolution 17-130, authorizing the mayor to approve a purchase order for the purchase of an additional 10-wheel dump truck in an amount not to exceed $223,608. Wendell.
Thank you, Mayor. If you'll remember, this was discussed at last week's budget meeting. It was originally proposed as a green sheet to be added to the budget. Council directed us to bring this back to you as a council item to be approved and a purchase order approved, if I remember right, to be taken out of the fleet fund. So the staff report discusses why we need it for additional snow plowing efforts and street maintenance. And we are therefore recommending to the council that a purchase order be processed to purchase the vehicle.
Move to approve Resolution 17-130.
Second.
A motion by Mayor Rolfe and a second by Councilmember Anderson. Discussion to the motion. Councilmember McConaughey.
I'd like credit for that second, even though I don't deserve it. Tie goes to him, but
I thought I
so
heard him
close.
say it first. Let's vote. Oh, excuse me. Who clicked in? Councilmember Jacob.
Yeah, I was just looking at the staff report. A quick question for Wendell. How many of the plows on the pickup trucks do we have? I know we've got 12 of the 10-wheelers and bobtails. How many of the other trucks do we have?
I believe there's about 15 or 16 of them, 1-ton trucks that we
use? Okay.
plus parks. Parks as an integral part of snow plowing.
All right, thank you.
Let's vote.
Mayor Rolfe,
Yes.
Councilmember Newton,
Aye.
Councilmember Anderson,
Yes.
Councilmember Nichols,
Yes.
Councilmember McConaughey,
Aye.
Councilmember Burton,
Yes.
Councilmember Jacob.
No.
The vote passes 6-1 in favor.
Need a motion to move to closed session and adjourn from there for the discussion and of character, professional competence, or physical or mental health of an individual, strategy session to discuss pending or reasonably imminent litigation, strategy sessions to discuss the purchase, exchange, or lease of real property, including any form of a water right or water share.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Burton and a second, 2 seconds, but 1 second by Councilmember Anderson. Discussion to the motion. Let's vote.
Councilmember Jacob,
Yes.
Councilmember McConaughey,
Aye.
Councilmember Burton,
Yes.
Councilmember Anderson,
Yes.
Councilmember Newton,
Yes.
Councilmember Nichols,
Yes.
Mayor Rolfe.
Yes.
Vote passes 7 in favor.
We'll move to the closed session in the fishbowl and adjourn from there. We need an opinion from our city attorney.
No, Mayor, I was just going to suggest, and in light of the Tribune article, I know that you personally, as well as members of the entire city council, would like to have a transparency that the public, the community, would have a better understanding of what happens in those closed sessions. In considering what I can and cannot disclose, my question to the council is, the following day after that meeting, I could sit down with Ms. Briggs and identify which of those 3 items we discussed in general terms. If it was a character and fitness, she would put it in the minutes, and we would exclude the other 2, so that the public would have an understanding when we retreat. It's to discuss litigation. If it's imminent litigation, I can put the name of the lawsuit. I mean, that's public information. I'm just trying to create some type of additional information that the public and everybody will have, so that the next time there's an audit, we can identify clearly what it is we discussed.
We'll welcome that.
I will then, starting tomorrow, provide that information to Ms. Briggs, so when you see the minutes, you'll have an ability to maybe comment if you want to, if it's being presented in a way you don't like, or if you want a better clarification or less, let me know.
Can I add to that also? It would also be helpful for the recordings of the closed session. I could, instead of just say that, I could add whatever the attorney's office adds, if it's a specific litigation or what, which would be better, easier for searchability.
So I'll keep track of the timing of events and then provide that to Ms. Briggs as well.
Okay, great. Let's make it so.